Hola, people. Hi, guys and girls, and thank you for joining us again for Wednesday Night Movies with Johnny Mnemonic. And we have with us Jim, Windology, and Sadako24. So, hi, guys.
Hello.
So, I know somebody's not watched it yet,
I've not watched it yet.
but we're going to actually try and convince you to watch it. I'm actually checking my system.
Where can I watch it?
I think, was it not on Amazon?
It's on Amazon Prime.
Amazon
Prime. I forgot I was on mute. It's on Amazon Prime. That's what I watched it.
Okay.
For free. It's free if you have Prime, yeah.
Yeah.
I do have Prime, so yeah. Let's see.
Yeah. I've got Prime. That's one of the only things I do have. I don't have Netflix. I don't have Disney Plus. I don't have HBO. I don't have anything else.
Nor do
Prime.
we.
Only because I've got an thing over there. If I say her name, she'll actually go, "What are your notifications?" No, and I don't want to actually speak to her because she every so often shouts at me, and I shout back. I'm terrible for it. So you've been watching my wee clips. Surprise, surprise! For the first few, have all been my favourite program.
Oh, I've been loving those. Brilliant, and then the scene with the ant at the top of that, like that sand dune, is my favourite scene, and the sound and the music and everything. Brilliant.
Well, mine's is still to come later on. There's one called.
I know what your scene is. Yeah.
What a mean. But yeah,
so something that struck me was actually looking back at it, seeing you having the clips coming up. It's the visual quality, it's the lighting effects and everything. Something created such a long time ago.
Yeah,
stands out really clear on my 4K HD screen.
That's brilliant.
I must admit, my big screen, it actually doesn't. It's not grainy at all. So. And mind you, I'm playing that from my DVD onto my screen and just ripping the bits off at need. Keep getting copyright strikes, but they basically just say copyright claims, not strikes, and they put adverts on it and they claim the money. So it's not.
Yeah, not seen any adverts yet.
So, neither have I, but
I did wonder if they were
certain locations. It'll be certain places that they are still. So if somebody in certain locations, they'll have adverts, whereas other places won't. I thought it would give us something to do because I watch all the old movies and I think, oh, that's a good wee bit.
That's a good scene, yeah.
So
did you said they did come after you with the copyright strikes, but they didn't
claims rather than strikes. So it doesn't affect my channel. It's just that they're saying we own this and we're going to put adverts and monetize it, but you're getting nothing.
That's fair enough. Because you're doing it just for fun.
Yeah, and that's exactly. And I just put a wee notification saying no intention of copyright infringement. This is just fun for entertainment, and it is because it's movies I want people to go and buy and watch.
Yeah, so, exactly. So I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you do hear horror stories about YouTube, and they have gone a little overboard with some people. I think a little over.
They do, but then there's other ones that you're sitting watching and you're getting people who have got like a 9-minute clip of a movie or a TV show and you're sitting there thinking, really?
Don't you realize this is actually selling the movie?
But it's just really weird.
Yeah. But to police an entire platform like that, you have to have some kind of framework, unfortunately. So
definitely,
I think it's far too much on the automation side. And to be brutally honest, it's not just Hollywood doing silly choices in determining what franchise to reboot again and again and again. It is alienating the fan base that would like to just have like a 20-second clip, discuss a lot about it, why they thought it was such an amazing thing to have in the film, or why that really convinced them that this is a lot better than this.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Archer Colin never managed to get around to watch the movie, and don't worry, Colin, the Dark, we've never got a chance to watch it yet, so we'll be trying to convince the two of these to actually to watch it.
When Noddy, I must say, you were quite a furious typer.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's because I'm using. Someone else said that. I type for a job, so obviously I'm just so used to typing that I'm like on the keyboard. But I'm using the microphone on my laptop.
Okay.
So unfortunately, it's picking up my typing.
everything. Yeah.
So I'll try and mute that.
I'm going to actually dig out a clip, and I'm just going to call it Our Windology, and it's a clip of a TV show. And I'll dedicate it to you. I need to dig it out because it's one of my. It's in the background somewhere, but I just need to remember what one it is. I know who it is, but I need to remember what one it is. I think it's Turoni. It's either that or else it's something like it's a Morecambe and Wise sketch.
Oh, bring it on.
I need
Sounds
to dig
good.
it out. So if I can find it, I'll dig it out and I'll dedicate it to you.
Lovely.
You'll see why once you see it.
Go for it. Go for it. I've been keyboarding since the 1980s, since the very first home computers started being sold, because that was actually one of my very first jobs, was selling home computers from a little computer shop. So
I had the ZX81, and prior to getting that, we did typing.
Alexis.
See, she does that with me. That's why I try and make sure I don't say words that might sound like it. But no, I basically had the ZX81 was my first computer at home. My dad bought it. I was 16. I was 16 when he bought it. But prior to that, we did typing in school, so I had learned. But even at that, I could type fairly quickly, but only with 4 fingers, because it was both my index fingers and both my thumbs. Because of the way I was typing, it was so it was typed like that when using the thumbs as well.
Yes.
So this has not really affected my typing that much. It just means I can't use my thumb in that hand, but I still type quite quickly.
Yeah. We sort of, at that time, the typing, the conventional typing classes were being phased out, and then just the organic typing processes were coming in because people were just typing the way that they felt comfortable.
Yeah, because I did my first job. Sorry, tell a lie. My first office job, because I worked with my dad, my grandpa, and my granddad, and all my uncles. Trials and monumental specialist. I used to make headphones, but then I went back to college, and then my first job was data input, and I had to do a type test for my first job, which I passed. So obviously I could type fast enough, even though I was typing like that. So it was not as bad as I thought. I always thought I was a bad typer until I actually passed that test, and I couldn't believe it. Just goes to show. You never understand. You always underestimate what you can do until somebody else says, "Ah, that was fine." So
my first computer was the C64. And
the what 64? The Commodore 64.
Or the C64 was called, yeah. And
and
then sadly one day got C69.
Yeah, one of my friends had the Commodore 64 and I had the ZX Spectrum. And it was basically a case of he was going over to different, he would come over to ours, we would play certain games, go over to his and play certain games. And some of his games didn't work very well because he had a black and white portable plugged into, and it needed colour. It was a bit you're meant to swim because piranhas were coming towards you, and you could see them just, there would be bubbles and stuff like that. But because it was black and white TV, you couldn't tell. So basically, you're swimming and suddenly you get dragged under because you couldn't see the piranhas were coming. And it was
I learned to find I wouldn't say typing per se, but I learned to find the characters quickly on a keyboard because I was playing a game in 1986, maybe 85, 86, called Moria, which was a text-based dungeon crawler with always randomly generated dungeons, and you had to steer your character and open spell books and inventories and everything with different keys on the keyboard. And it literally made use. You can still download it and play it today. It might be a little bit too fast now that computers are so strong, but yeah, I learned how to find the keys on the keyboard.
You
It's
can get
so easy.
emulators that will slow them down, because I've had Saberwolf downloaded on an emulator. One of my first games that I had on a PC, not a Spectrum or anything like that, was a fighting game, and it was on a 5.5-inch floppy disk.
Yay! Floppy disk.
Yeah, 5.5-inch
Back in the
floppy
days
disk,
when
and
the
it
discs
basically
were
was
really
you
floppy.
picked your armies in your
Exactly.
formation, and the two of them attacked each other, and it was just a fighting
When
game.
floppies were floppy.
Yes. Then you had the 3.5-inch, which is how's that a floppy? It's solid. Aye, but you break it apart and did it and stuff like that.
Yeah, they sort of broke the mold then with that one. I was like, no.
Yeah.
The C64 was tapes and cartridges, cassette tapes,
Yes.
like that cassette player, and then you also had cartridges.
Cassette tapes. Oh, I remember them.
Yeah.
Where you loaded up, then you hit play on the screen and it just whirred up, and then you went to school, and when you came back in the afternoon, you had finally loaded a game.
Yeah. The best one I ever knew, it wasn't a game. It was, I used to work in a uni. I was supporting the uni, still floppy disks and stuff like that. And somebody came in, held up a floppy disk, and says, "My dissertation's due in 2 weeks, and it's no working. My floppy disk is no reading." He says, "Have you got a backup?" She says, "Aye." We said, "Where?" And she went, "Same disk."
Oh, no.
And we just basically went, "Oh dear." So we managed to get it back, all text. So we managed to get all our text back, no formatting, and told her, format it and put it in 2 different discs. Don't put your backup on the same disc as yours. But that was 2 Word documents on one 1.4 megabyte floppy disk. You couldn't even actually get a part of a Word document now.
No, you
Well,
couldn't.
I remember when technology got so advanced that you could put the same file or a really big file and you could split it across multiple disks. But it's like, hey, this is like the future. I mean, you're sitting there with like 10 disks, it's like trying to install something.
I can remember jobs that I worked where at the end of the night we'd have to do our backups of our work or something, and you'd have to sit there with the 3.5-inch floppies with air quotes, and keep putting the discs in as one was filling up. You'd have to keep loading the next one.
Yep, used to do that because we used to write programs, and I had to actually create all the discs, and it was like 15 discs. Putting it in, and then you had to put the first disc back in so it would rewrite it. But if you did it incorrectly, screwed up the whole thing, you had to start again and rewrite all these discs. So I used to have 16 discs to do the 15, because instead of putting the first one back in, I just put a 16th disc in and it rewrote it. And then we used to just
That's smart.
put it out as a 16 disc one. But yeah, actually writing it across discs. And Colin, no, I've never played Mars Sport.
Who here remembers having Rolodexes but with floppy disks instead?
Yes.
Yes. I had the one that it wasn't a round Rolodex. It was the long rectangular one with the lid, and you lifted the lid and you flipped through had like little dividers in it.
Yes. Had that, and believe it or not, I've actually got one somewhere in here, and I've also got a floppy disk box somewhere in here.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where either of the two of them are. I have got the cards because I used to use it for my Dungeons and Dragons, my wee card holder. So anytime we would play Dungeons and Dragons, my characters or anything that was given went onto a card and written down. So that was for this game, this was for that level, and I used to keep them all like that. It is in here somewhere, God knows where.
Archer Colin asks, anyone else learn BASIC?
Yes,
right.
I did BASIC.
There was like with my Commodore 64 set, there was this tape called the I'm getting a bad echo. Sorry.
I'm not getting any echo. Anybody else getting an echo?
Yeah, there was a little bit of echo I can still hear it coming off mine.
Oh.
Sadako had a little echo as well.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing it on my side either, so it must be some weird feedback somewhere.
Yeah. Colin picked it up in the chat, so it's odd.
Oh yeah, that's about the basic. We had this tape called it was called this Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit. Now they had about 4 games on there. There was Slap and Tickle, Tran Man, and quite a few others.
Nowadays, you couldn't actually have any of those games.
No, these were kind of just shoot 'em up games, and like but like
the
the
name.
before those 4
Yeah.
games, and the 5th, like, 'cause, like you had to play the tape to a certain timestamp just to get the data from one game, and then from the next you could get a different game, and the 5th was a make it yourself game where you could create your own shoot 'em up game. I go, oh, what's that?
That's basically the Wii computer game I got. It's got Space Invaders on it, but it's got 12 games on it.
Oh, cool.
It's got Burger Time, Burning Rubber, driving game obviously, Escape It, Front Line, Jungle Hunt, Lock and Chase, Miss It, Polaris, which I used to play. I remember Polaris on the PC, on the Spectrum. Shield Shifter, Space Invaders, Space Raid, and Strip Off. The Space Raid I used to play as well. And what was I think Jungle Hunt was when it was like a shoot 'em up type thing, and it was the usual typical. Sort of you bring the guy up and his hand would just go in different directions and he would fire, and as other people were coming down at this side and there was things blocking, you were trying to shoot. My wife bought me that for Christmas, and it's got some nice classic old games.
Oh yeah,
it's obviously my favourite, so I'm okay with it.
It's getting tired. There's nowhere to hide. I've been blown away.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so everybody's getting an echo except me. I'm wondering if it's my system actually is duplicating it, because I've turned my sound down. And
yeah, I'm on the same setup that I am on every week, so I know.
So I've turned my sound down a wee bit to see if that helps, just to make sure it's not picking up.
Where Colin remembers Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit. Or S.
Yeah.
See, because it was the acronym.
Yeah. Didn't think that one through. Yeah. I suppose if you didn't like the game, you had an automatic nickname for it.
Yeah. Well, often it was like the games, they'd have a title that just seemed really incongruous with the game itself, if they were kind of homemade.
Hi, the lovely Sherry, and hi, Keely Chow. We've not started joining mnemonic yet. Don't worry, we're getting there. We were just talking old classic games and
well,
we're getting warmed up.
Even on that,
we're getting warmed up. Yes.
The old games and the old computers.
Yeah, because in a way, like this film was based on a short story by William Gibson, and he wrote a lot about this new developing. It was in its infancy. It was in its infancy at the time in the 80s. Was this idea of cyberspace? It was like the idea you could connect computers together to share information, and there was like at the time there were various theories about how cyberspace would be used. Because this documentary I've seen called Hypernormalization, and it looks back on how when it was cyberspace was emerging, there was someone who thought that cyberspace was a place where corporations would take power, and there were these radicals who thought you could actually use cyberspace to create kind of a this kind of an echo chamber, but not an echo chamber, but more a
that's better. That's modern stuff, creating the echo chamber.
No, they thought it'd be like this kind of sanctuary where they could discuss revolutionary ideas.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. You have been on now. Can I get some peace and quiet?
Yes. Your co-stars.
Yeah, the co-stars.
Go ahead, Sadako.
Yeah, just Archer's asking about the books and magazines in the program to type in. I vaguely remember Yeah, I do remember getting some magazines, and I think there were a few cheat codes. Most of the cheat codes in the magazine were games I didn't have. So
Yeah, it was frustrating, but I tried to describe the whole concept of when you got the computer magazine back in the day, they literally had 4 or 6 full pages. Like, if you retype all of this code, you will have a video game.
Yeah, or else you would get things like for Saberwolf, you would get a sheet double A, so an A2, or basically a double size of the whole map. So you can imagine the size of the map in the game, and you had it over a magazine double sheet, and you had to actually work out how to play it with these wee teeny maps like that. Just because it gave you the route rather than anything. So it was screenshots for every access, but they actually had to reduce it all down to very small just so they could fit on the 2 pages.
Oh, that's right, because I did have a game called the Batman movie game, and like you've got this time, like there's this time limit on it, and like you're not going to be able to navigate the chemical plant unless you actually have seen like the pictures of what the landscape of the the levels and landscape of the game is, in order to find out where you need to go, and in record time kind of thing.
And the thing is, when I was watching Johnny Mnemonic, the parts where it was in the computer system, that's what it reminded me of, because obviously when it was made, it was what, 95?
95.
The computer graphics in it were, for the time, really good. But looking back in it, you're sitting there thinking, yep, I used to see games that actually were better than that, not long after, or not about the same time.
Yeah.
But considering that's probably just when CDs were coming in. Would you two stop laughing? Growling at each other?
We had companies such as Atari. The brand name everybody knows, but I would highly recommend for anyone that loves computers and that like the ideas, go and try and find the documentary for why they made the corporation, how they did. They were basically the early Google, where they have all these comfy chairs, sit back and relax, come up with a good idea, and then make it happen. But do take a break, do have fun at work. Absolutely amazing. It is reminiscent of that era because it felt like the sky was the limit. They could do literally whatever they wanted, and they managed to deliver it. And thankfully today we do have, thanks to these companies like Atari, ID Software that made the Doom game genres, they pushed forward the graphics technology and like the RAM and the CPU, that they need to have even more power. Because most people keep forgetting that the boss of IBM in 1965 said something like, "Oh, I think maybe we need a total of 5 computers on the entire planet."
Yeah, nobody would ever have a computer at home because most computers were bigger than your house.
Yes. They were like football stadiums in size.
I still kind of get nostalgic for what happened to Ocean software.
Oh, Ocean was good as well.
Oh, do you know what I was watching yesterday on YouTube? It was the thing about Myst, the game, the designing, and how they nearly never managed it because it was all to do with trying to cut it down to get it onto CD-ROMs, which were brand new at the time, and not many people had CDs and stuff like that. So it was the development of Myst, and I remember Myst and Riven too, or Riven, which was Myst too. I had both of them for my Mac, and I used to love them. And I was watching the documentary. There is one on. It's all about how they managed. They were almost failing because they had to struggle to get it onto CD-ROM. Just one per aisle. So you had like 6, I think it was 7 CDs, and it was one per island or something like that, or 5 CDs for Myst, and it was one per island, and it was all done on the Mac cards, which was just an image popping up. So if you clicked on that card, it would bring the other image up, which was a slightly different image. Then they would have animated parts in it, but it was just part of the image, and it was over, and it was done in the Max Hyper card program, and it's all
Wow.
to do with the making sure the images were small enough and where they were located on the CD. So they had to actually, as you were going around doing something, they had to make sure on the track the image was right next to the other one, so it didn't have to go and search. So it was because they weren't very fast, and it was fun to actually listen to them talking about the development and how they managed to get it out there. And that,
Everybody probably remembers the modem dialing up and going scream. How many people really do recall your CD-ROM working so hard trying to find the location, which literally going scratch, 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 whirl, scratch, 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 whirl.
yeah, but in Myst they had to actually design it in such a way that to make sure it didn't go seeking, because the early CD-ROMs had one speed. That, I mean, so it was one speed. Now you've got, and then I remember about 3 computers back, you always look for a CD-ROM which was a ×8, just so you could get one that was fast enough to read uh, programs you had. Otherwise, they were too slow. So, and then obviously we've gone through that over the last 5, 10 years. But I remember still looking for a machine with an ×8 CD-ROM.
Yeah, because
Just
that
so it would
was the
actually have the speed.
big cool thing to have. It's like either it's like, oh, I have an 8-spin CD-ROM, or I have a 16-speed CD-ROM. It's like, oh, I'm really cool. Oh, but can you write your own CDs? Oh yeah, but only in one
I
speed.
had a tower. I had a tower. So it used to write 8 CDs at any one time. My job in work was doing the software, and everybody used to say, "What movies you got?" So I would bring my book out, open it, go cut one, and then I would get all the orders, and I would just literally sit and work and cut 8 CDs of whatever movies I had for somebody to have. Even the CEO of the company would come down and look through my thing and order stuff from us. He would just actually say, "Just offer the CDs in. The company will pay for them." And I was just basically supplying everybody with
Oh,
CDs.
that's well back in the day, yeah.
That was well back in the day. That's when a
Yeah,
movie was on
yeah.
a CD, because it was
Yeah,
an
yeah.
API that you
That's
had
back
to
in the
rip.
day when the CD-ROMs was hard currency.
Oh
Yes.
yeah. That was serious.
Whereas now you can, if you rip it properly, you can get 5 on a DVD, and that's just a bog standard DVD, because you can rip them down to like 700-800 meg. If you can get them done properly, you get the codec properly, and then you can just have AVIs. But I remember at the time putting them on AVI, just saying, "No, you can only watch them on your computer. This won't work on your DVD player," and all this rubbish. But
Now,
the good old days, the really good old days.
now there is something of a history to movies based on computers, isn't there? Like first there was Tron, wasn't there? Was that the first big one?
Yes,
I
I
would
love
say,
Tron. Tron was
was
absolutely
Tron before
superb.
Lawnmower Man?
It was, yeah. No,
Yes.
Tron was early 1980s.
Mhm.
But
It's
then you have
interesting.
War Games.
Tron was basically line graphic animation,
Yeah.
computer animation. So it was, and that it was that old. But I
I
loved Tron,
was
and I
yeah,
loved the
me.
game Tron as well. I had that. The wee motorbike. Ooh,
Yep.
It was basically Worms with collision graphics.
well, exactly it was. Christ almighty. See the old games, and that just goes to show what a program like Johnny Mnemonic could do. Actually, tangents there. Remember these type of computers. But
Yep.
did anybody actually pick up what they kept calling what we would class as a Zoom call, or
Skype.
an audible phone?
Yeah, so yeah, that was weird.
Did you hear what they called it?
I can't remember.
An iPhone.
Oh God, yes, yes.
Yeah,
I
and it's
can't believe
I
it.
can
basically an
remember now when I
iPhone
watched
because it
it.
was
I was just like, what did he say?
It was basically because they were calling it an iPhone, as in to look at someone. So anytime they would say, call up the iPhone, and then it would, and then there's a picture of the guy going, don't you do this to me, didn't it? And that's what
When
they were calling it, an iPhone.
when was the first Apple iPhone?
It was about, it must have been about 10, 20, no, 20 years, maybe 2005, 2015. Was it 2000? It would have been
That's funny.
2005. It had to be 2013, 2014. So almost 20 years after this movie. But it's because they weren't calling it an iPhone, whereas if you're watching it now, you hear iPhone. But they were literally, they were meaning visual phone. So they were calling it an iPhone. And I thought, that's hilarious.
But did anyone clock the year of the internet?
Say again?
The year of the internet. Did anyone clock what the year of the internet was? It's literally at the intro part. This is Internet 2021.
So was I. That's right.
At the beginning, yeah. Couldn't remember if it was
That's
21
right.
or 22.
I never even clocked that. But hindsight, yeah, I remember they were implying that was the year for it, the internet. But it just goes to show. But see, some of the things you look at, Johnny with his visor down and his and all that, whereas you look now where you get haptic gloves. So you've got your visor, you bring your visor down, put your gloves on, and basically you're doing that.
Yeah,
that was great.
Sorry, Wen, go ahead.
Sorry, Jim. Yeah, I was just going to say that was so cool when that scene with the haptic gloves and, and I was even when he put the visor down, it was like all of that has come to pass, essentially. Go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
It reminded me of what people used to say about Star Trek, because they would do the communicator like that, whereas we had flip phones like that. And it's because programs like Star Trek, it would get people interested in doing stuff. And I wonder how many people had been watching Johnny Mnemonic and thinking, I would love to do something like that and do it. Because you hear all the ones from Star Trek, like the guy from Motorola, when he did his first mobile phone, he phoned his
it was the flip phone.
No, it was basically a big brick.
Oh,
He phoned him and he says, look, where are you? He says, look out your window. And he basically waved up to him. He was standing in the street with a phone, which they didn't have. It means the battery was like that.
Yeah.
It was like a suitcase.
I know the ones you mean. They used to have them on construction sites and places.
Yes.
They were like a huge brick, yeah.
Didn't the Brigadier use one in Robot?
Yes, I think he did.
Oh, yes. I need to
the
show
military
something.
love their toys.
I need to show something to 6.
I was really impressed with that watching this film. That it reminded me of things like Star Trek, Tron, things like that. That at the time, what we were watching seemed so far advanced, like it would have been something that we would never be able to dream of actually having in our lifetimes. And yet we've seen literally the birth of the home computer all the way up to, basically having technology that would have been considered like, something we could never have lived long enough to have now, because it's going exponential now. Whereas before, you had to wait years for the next type of computer to come out.
Oh God, you had your
years.
computer, and basically it ran the same way. Because my first computer was an Olivetti.
Oh, I remember Olivetti. They were typewriter.
Yes, they were. And I used to stay down just literally at the Olivetti factory in Glasgow. It used to be in Queensley, and I remember the Olivetti factory. But my first computer, business computer for when I was at university, was an Olivetti C2. It had 2 mega RAM and 20 megabytes hard drive. Oh, 20 meg.
Oh, yeah, you see, I had to wait a lot longer than that. But the first laptop that I had at home that Mum got to work was a compact LTE that was introduced in 1989. Before then, I had to be in computer societies, use their computer servers and everything like that. But it was so amazing to have this. By today's standard, it wasn't small,
Yeah.
but it was small enough. And I remember it was not a black and white or black and green or even black and orange, which Compaq had a different model for. This was white, blue, and dark blue. That was the colors you had to play with.
Yeah. And I was thinking that Colin was saying about the brick phone. I used one of the brick phones. My brother-in-law had a brick phone, and he always used to stow it around as if it was cool. I borrowed it once to make a phone call, and it cost about £15 to talk because it was expensive. I got
you
these
had to
through the
be.
post today.
Ooh.
Man,
Oh,
it was cool.
fantastic.
But the only reason I actually said that was because somebody had mentioned this, and I thought I might as well do it.
Oh, I know. We've got the brig in one of our other sets with
So I've got
the
the one
Master with
I've got the
Delgado,
big with,
but I'd love to have that set. That's brilliant.
That's
12 pounds.
that's the Terror of the Zygon set, is it, or is it?
No, it's just it's the Terror of the Claws of Axos.
Oh, right, okay.
So it's the Claws of Access. It's Sergeant Benton, the Brigadier, and Captain Yates. I've also got
That's
the
gorgeous.
one with
Yes.
the Brigadier with Tom Baker sitting up there, and I've got another one with the Brigadier, and I think it might be with the Master. I need to actually dig it out because it's up at the top, but I've got them all over the place. That's the problem. I've got boxes like that all over the place. So I need to actually dig it out because I've got 3 with the Master, with the Brigadier in it, but I had to get the one with Yates and Benton. So I did. So is my mic still working? Because I just dropped the thing, my soundboard.
Yeah, we can still hear you. I just
Yeah.
dumped a little bit from the Wikipedia into the private chat about the compact computer I had.
Yeah.
And it's earned a notable place in laptop history.
Yeah. I was looking at that, but I remember that Arthur C. Clarke quote.
Such amazing
Advanced
culture.
technologies things so far from magic. I remember one, and I can't remember. I think it was someone taking the Arthur C. Clarke quote and actually saying, "Right, you go back 50 years. Could you explain current technology to a scientist?" Right. So somebody picks something they've got a bit of knowledge of. It doesn't need to be knowledge completely. So you pick something you've got knowledge of, right, that you'd be able to explain to somebody, a scientist 50 years ago.
I can definitely explain 50 years ago we were still within the 1965 range because computers were around. But explaining Elon Musk, to anyone.
Let's go back 100 years. Not necessarily.
My dad might have, but he wasn't born. He was born in 32.
Right. But I'm not even talking about computer technology, anything, just one piece of technology, right? Give an example. They used a blender. So describe a blender to somebody from
May I throw a little bit of a twig into the wheel here? Because if you recall, in 1906 or 1901, didn't they have like the World Scientist Fair and everything, and they had light bulbs, and they had conveyor belts, and they had machines that printed out papers. Okay, it was kind of like a preset, so it was like an advanced Gutenberg like printing machines, but they did have a lot of these. And then you had all these amazing drawings, although they were just concept arts back then, but they had flying cars, they had all of these ideas back then. So the notion has been around for quite some time. But yeah, I agree. If I jump back 100 years, even something as commonplace as indoor plumbing may be complicated to explain to someone.
Yeah, but that's what they were even saying things like take something simple to explain, right? So you go back 200-300 years and try and explain a blender. So how does a blender work? Anybody want to try it? How does a blender work?
It's basically a accelerating knives that basically pulverize fruit into
Right.
liquid.
Okay. What accelerates the knives?
A conduction.
Say again.
Is it conduction or convection motor?
Right. But what causes that?
Electricity.
What's the electricity? Do you see where it goes? It literally, you can go for
Magic.
something which you can actually describe, and then suddenly you're saying, but to get that, you need this. Right. So what's
Right.
that?
Okay. Right. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Let
No,
me try. Right,
as,
okay.
as a steampunk fan, I would just go, no, don't worry, buddy, it's just running on steam.
No,
Yeah,
no.
but you see where
No.
it can go, and that's what they were saying. Even if you're knowledgeable in a subject and try and describe it, so say you could describe how a computer works, and
Let
then
me
they'll
try.
say, right, how does that work? You say all you need to do is plug it in. Plug it in. What do you mean? And then it's a case of electricity. You have to explain electricity. You might know about the computer, but you'll not understand the electricity to explain it to them, to get the power, to get
Right.
and it's that type of thing. So no matter how simple something starts, it starts spiraling because one
Right,
thing leads to another, and it's those things that start going out
Right,
with
okay.
your wheelhouse.
Here's what I say. Right. Okay. You know, lightning that comes from the sky. You can channel that energy into powering.
Yeah, but
things.
how? You see, that's what I'm saying. It goes down. It can go down
Right,
a rabbit hole.
This is where you cheat a little bit, although it won't go back 100 years. But technically, Back to the Future happened in 1955, where electricity was chucked into a DeLorean that wasn't made until about 30 years later.
Yeah.
You kind of get the gist, but I do understand.
But that's what they were
concept of
saying.
trying
So
to
it was
explain it.
basically taking the Arthur C. Clarke thing, and then actually people said, "Aye, but I could describe that." But if you start saying, and then somebody asks just a simple question like, "How does that work?"
But
So,
we
like,
had such amazing author back then. So if you take Arthur C. Clarke, Heinlein, and Raymond that wrote Princess of Mars and everything,
yeah,
imagining long before we even knew how rocketry worked, going to space, going to other planets, they had that, shall we say, I wouldn't say it's impossible to describe to someone of yesterday's knowledge, but
yeah.
you have to have maybe a Heinlein or Arthur C. Clarke kind of mindset to be able
Yeah.
to do so.
But that's what I'm saying. Even no matter how well you can describe something, as soon as it starts getting into that part, but how does that happen? Then you're starting to get out with your knowledge, and then it's a case of, oh, it just comes out the wall. Because I don't know how electricity works. I just plug it in and it comes out the wall. And how does it get? And it's things like that. So no matter how knowledgeable you could be about a subject, our technology is basically built. It's not just that technology; it's built in all these other ones, and it basically just goes down a rabbit hole. So even if you've got a knowledge of quite a few things, eventually it's going to get to the point where it's going to fall flat because there's going to be something you use it, but you don't know how it works or how to get it or that type of thing. So
Right. Well, how about this?
explain how plastic is made, explain how cabling is made, explain how the fiber optics and
Okay.
it's things like that.
Well, how about this? First of all, you explain how lightning is formed. It's formed from friction by it's static electricity formed by friction of the motion of clouds, and the electron particles within them.
Yeah.
And basically, you can potentially create the same effect in a power station.
Yes, but explain a power station. How do you build how do you do a power? You see where it goes? It literally you can give basic information about something like you could do in this, and like, okay, explain that then. And how do you build a power station? And that's what the article was all about. It was taking basically it was taking Arthur C. Clarke's it's indistinguishable from magic. And somebody said, but no, if it's significant knowledge, you can explain it. And then they took that explanation and just had somebody saying, how does that happen then? Oh, well, that does this. Okay, but how do you get that? Oh, well, that does because by it. And it gets to a point where you go, I don't know. I don't know how. I know what it is, but I don't know how to make it. So you eventually, that's the technology. Somehow it's magic because you might be able to say it's no magic because it does this. But how does it do that? Well, you have to get this. But how does that work? And how do you get that? Well, you get it
Yeah.
from this. And then eventually you get down to the point where you go, hmm. So the magic is there again. And it's basically, even if you're significantly knowledgeable about certain things, eventually you're going to get to the point where you don't know, and then it fall flat, and it's basically, well,
I wouldn't sell the people of yesterday that short. I mean,
no, but
one of my favorite
if
documentary
something's not
series.
invented, then it doesn't matter about selling them short. It could be smart. If it's something they've got zero knowledge of, and it's maybe 30 or 40 years before it starts to be introduced, you can't actually sell them short.
Exactly,
You're
and
just basically
I agree
giving them
to
an
that point.
explanation. I try to explain something to them they've never seen, and there's no concept of it. Eventually, even your explanation is going to fall flat because there's things you don't know and you can't explain.
But if you take one of my favorite, is it documentary? I don't really know. It's Carl Sagan's Cosmos. And he literally begins with the guy that managed to measure the size of Earth. And it was like 0.1% of the exact measurement of planet Earth. And all he had was 2 water wells and 2 pieces of sticks.
It was what I think it was 1-2% out on the size. Based on that was he knew the distance between the 2 wells, and he knew that as the sun was overhead one, it was exactly overhead, but in the other one it was given a certain degree, and based on that degree he calculated the circumference.
Exactly. So he used
2%.
trigonometry and really advanced mathematics back then. That was what, 4,000 years ago?
See, I remember Jump Jack Flash. Was that the one with Whoopi Goldberg, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
yeah, it
Whoopi.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those big computers.
Did anybody notice the big monitor screen in the film when he goes to put the haptic gloves on? There was one of those great big huge clunky old monitors that had
CRT screens, yeah.
The old CRT. Oh my god, it was massive.
I loved the bit when they actually opened the door and there's all the old screens and they're on platforms about that thick.
Yeah.
They're all piled on top and you just see it zooming in this big platform, and there's one meant to be behind it's meant to look dead futuristic, and it's basically a tree of big enormous shelves with monitors all over.
I know. All that stuff's in
hilariously funny.
In a landfill now.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
God, I know. I remember actually.
I hated rebuilding offices when they wanted, when management wanted to. Let's build some islands. People sit a bit closer to each other, and you go. It's like, that's my weekend. I don't need a gym membership. I'm gonna have done more exercise in a weekend than you do in a year.
Yeah, that stuff you needed like a weightlifting belt on to carry a lot of that stuff. It was so heavy.
You talk about CRT screens. Does anybody nowadays still not use a screensaver? Right? There's always screensavers. Very rarely you have somebody's got a machine that doesn't have a screensaver if they're away for 10, 15 minutes. Even if
I have screensavers today. Well, it's been 2 years because of lockdown and everything, but I had a screensaver looking exactly like my desktop. So people thought I'd left my computer unlocked when I walked away to get a coffee. So they were trying to go in and send naughty emails on my behalf to the rest of the company.
See, mine was a blue screen of death. So basically that's what my screensaver was. But remember nowadays you don't really need a screensaver. Yes, locking it for security, but the reason for screensavers was the green text or the plain text on a black. It would literally burn your monitor. And that's why you got the screensaver, which was just a black screen with your wee it used to be the wee snake put up and down it, and it was literally just so it didn't burn the screen. Because if you looked at some of the old ones in offices, like banks and stuff like that, you turned the screen off and you could see the layout of their form that they had to input all the time. And it was because of that, and that's why
So
screensavers were
he
brought
was
out.
clearing it up. I
Yeah.
used to have the put in your own text and it dances around on the screen. And one of my favorite quotes, and I think I got it from Cookies in Linux. And the quote is, "Your lucky number has been disconnected."
I'm just laughing at that. Collins one. A woman walks into a cave, utters a short spell, and a small sun ignites in the middle of the room. Now, Alexa, shut up, shut up, shut up, Alexa,
You know,
shut
Colin
up.
typed that just so that you would read it
Yeah,
out.
I know. I was trying to actually no say it, but it's basically I don't have the setup because otherwise it. But it's yes, it's basically at one point it was a D&D spell, for instance, type. Now the D&D spell is literally 2 words. Horrible Histories. I've never watched that. My friend's daughter loves it and keeps on telling me to watch it, so she does. And I still know
Horrible
some
History is a hit and miss, but I do like some of the songs they've done, and one of them is, and I know I'm gonna get corrected by Colin here, but apparently there was a Roman that was richer than God, even richer than Elon Musk. He had so much money, but he was extremely paranoid. But in Horrible Histories, they did a kind of a rap song about it, and using very heavy UK slang terms. Ain't nobody minted like me, which basically meant I have more money than anyone. But some of them are really funny. Some of them are just like,
Yeah.
no, not at all. But I would,
I'm just
I would
basing.
say
I was
give them a
actually
look at
thinking
Black
about
History.
that part there. Kellyanne says about her mum asked to help out in a project about technology of the future, and she asked about something like what is now an Apple Watch, and they laughed. Can anybody remember anything they thought after seeing or working with technology thought, oh, I can't wait for this to turn up? Even TV programs, something, and we're still waiting on it.
It was in a uni project, and this was long before even the concept of touchscreen came along. We're literally talking the early days of the green and black text kind of screens, the early days of Nokia and Ericsson's, and they were going, we have a concept here, and it's up to the class to discuss, and it's like touch screens and like being able to move around. And I was absolutely against it because with the screen size you had, if I have to put my fat finger on that tiny little screen and try to move something, that is not ever going to work. And yep, today we have, I don't think we even have a button phone available anymore.
Well, believe it or not, it is actually was the first PDAs, the Blackberries. And I
Oh,
thought
yes.
anytime I saw it and somebody had this thing in the wee teeny screen and all the wee teeny keys, I thought, oh come on, surely somebody's going to actually have something that you can have a keyboard on the screen so you can hide the keyboard if you want to do something else, something that maybe you can pull at because take there were talks about um touchscreen, but you never thought something that size, like a BlackBerry, slightly smaller than that, with all these keyboards and a wee teeny screen, you could have it on something that small. Because we all thought it had to be big screens so your fingers could touch it. Because obviously you would think about maybe zones. You wouldn't get something that small. And all I remember was thinking, these wee teeny keys, I couldn't use them. You would need something the size of the actual thing just so you can go left and right to use the keyboard but you could also hide the keyboard if you want to do something else. And obviously that's now you get that. You get that in tablets, you get it on your phone, whatever. You can have a keyboard that just pops up. You can type
Mhm.
something and minimize it out the way. But there's also things like I remember actually watching some programs and there's these futuristic technologies coming up. And you're sitting there thinking, oh, I can't wait for that to happen. And you're still waiting because it's just science fiction because it's just something that even 40, 50 years later, they're still struggling to even get the concept right. No matter how hard they try it, certain things like you Lawnmower Man, like VR and stuff like that. You're not for it. They're starting to get the technology now. You can put a VR on, and yes, it actually has got that effect, but not where you're putting yourself in with the full haptic outfit. So
No, no,
you are,
not with a full haptic outfit, but Microsoft has had a project running for almost 7 years now. I probably don't recall the name correctly, but it's like Holodeck 2 or something, or Holovisor 2. It isn't virtual reality per se, but if you look at the Iron Man films, where he's having technical drawings and everything, that's what they're working on. And it's not a heavy headset. It's literally a pair of glasses you put on. They look maybe like sunglasses, but that's it. And then you can interact with your home environment and everything.
Yeah.
It's not there yet. It's not available to the public, but you can go on Microsoft.com's website and find HoloLens, Holodeck 2, or whatever it is. And you can see it is there. They're getting close.
yeah. But the
Hmm.
thing is, the reason I'm saying that is because my nephew, two Christmases ago, he basically got his new system. So you let me try it, and I've got it on, and there's the shark. So I'm thinking because yeah, I know it's VR because yes, it looked good. So like my sister would put it on, and the shark would come closer, and she would jump, and I'm sitting there thinking it's not that real. Then he says, "Okay, try this one." So he handed me a paddle, which effectively just had the button, and it was a gun. And he says, all you need to do is press that to fire the gun, and gave me the 3D. And then suddenly I'm looking behind me, leaning over that way, shooting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there
Tricks
thinking,
the brain.
it's tricking the brain, even though I know this is
Yeah.
a fake one. It is
Yeah.
still you're still looking around, looking behind you to make sure there's nothing coming up. So it's
Mhm.
not just a case of you. So it does give you your brain, even if you're a wee bit skeptical, that immersion.
Yep.
Because I remember years before, I used to play. I can't even remember the game, but it was you had to go across a bridge onto a cable car and cross the cable car wires to get into the castle. I don't know if it was a Wolfenstein or something like that, but the graphics were so great, I had to stop playing it because I had a fear
I
of heights.
still get
I had a
vertigo
fear
in
of
some
heights,
days.
and even on a 2D screen, the visuals just made me go, "Ooh, I could not play it because it actually just tricked my eyes because the 3D
Mm.
graphics were so good that I just couldn't play that. I had to get somebody else to actually do that part for me because I couldn't play it because I had a fear of heights at the time. It's
Oh
not a
God,
bad thing.
yeah.
And I just couldn't
I've
play it
never
because
had
of the 3D.
I never had the fear of heights, but even to this date, I can play. Minecraft will be the best game. And for those of you who have never touched Minecraft, think of it as an infinite box of Legos. You,
That's a
when
good
you build,
description, Jim. I always wondered what Minecraft was like because I've never played it, but obviously it's
infinite box of
incredibly
Lego.
popular.
If you can build it in Lego, you can build it in Minecraft. Except in
Mm.
Minecraft, you have an unlimited amount of pieces. Whatever you need, you just go out and grab from somewhere else and you go back and build yourself. But if you're
Yeah.
building yourself something like a skyscraper or something, because you think, oh, this would look cool to kind of make. But when you're up there in the game, it's like you're really high up and you're balancing on the edge because you want to place the next piece, you do
Yeah.
get vertigo every now and then. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
if I fall down, and it's not like you're feeling fear for yourself. It's like, if I'm falling down, I'm going to have to go back from like 10 minutes ago and collect all the pieces I dropped and then climb all the way back up.
Yeah.
So it's
I've never
more like
played
that,
it, but I
it's
have
still
seen
vertigo.
it. I have seen some of the environments that other people have built. So I have.
Yeah, I always
And
wondered
see
what the
James
deal was
Burt,
with
see the James Burt's connections that Kelly Lynch was talking about. Is James Burt the guy, haircut like mine, glasses? He always used to wear tweed. Is that James Burt's connections? Anybody remember?
No, I'm not sure about that one.
Because if it is, I think I do remember.
The name sounds familiar, but I am quite lost as to where it comes from.
I
James Burt.
don't know. Job for Google.
There's a gangster James Burt, so I don't think that's it.
You never know with Kellynch.
It is him. James Burt's connections. It is him. Where's the images? There he's there. I remember a lot of his stuff. Remember him? James Burt's connections. He basically used to do programs regarding the technology and stuff like that. So he did. So I remember him.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, that was before my time here. But
No, basically,
I don't know if that came over the States.
I was still at 78, so I was
just going to say that's from 78.
I was 13. So yeah, I was in my early teens watching it. So I was, but yeah, as soon as you said James Burt's connections, I remember that's why I was actually a sort of haircut like mine, glasses. I remember that part, but it has been years since I remember it.
Well, the haircut and glasses was unfortunately quite generic back then, wasn't it?
Yes, unless you were.
It was a very 1970s specs.
Yes, very square.
Very Michael Caine. Reminds me a little bit of the Michael Caine specs in oh my God, the film.
Arthur.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
Or the Italian Job.
Yeah.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
That's reminding me of Michael Caine's glasses.
See, I was thinking Alfie, but he didn't have glasses in Alfie.
Oh yeah, that's going back a bit. Yeah.
I know.
I do love Michael Caine. I can remember seeing him the first time in Educating Rita.
Yes.
When I was still in the States.
Educating Rita with one of the best lines I'd ever heard. One of the funniest lines when Rita's husband says, "Are you on a pill? You're definitely on a pill. Normally I just have to look at a woman and she becomes pregnant." And Rita turns around and says, "Yeah, always thought you were cockeyed." And I thought, yeah, that's one of the funniest jokes I'd ever heard at the time.
And it's the yeah, and it's the delivery as well.
It's just I just had to look at a woman, she would become pregnant. She says, "I thought you were cockeyed." It was just ideal, but yeah, I love that. Educating Rita was good, but I love the fact that they used to take programs and mix them. So you had Michael Caine's "You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off," and then they would put Zulu, "Don't throw those bloody spears at me." So you would get stuff like that, and it was ideal because you would take the character from the Italian Job, put him in Zulu because he was in Zulu, and actually just twist it down. So I liked it when they used to do that. But yes, some of the stuff they used to do earlier on was fantastic. The traveling through space screensaver, I remember that as well. Christ almighty, that was a few years back. It was just basically the in effect, it was just stars, as if you were traveling, so the stars were just flying past you.
Yes, I remember that.
White pixels.
I used to love that one.
Yeah. Anyway, Shall we talk John and Mnemonic?
I was just going to say, yes, let's get down to business.
Yeah. So
it's amazing though that this one film has literally just driven us down nostalgia lane about computers we were
Absolutely.
using back in the day.
yeah.
Oh
But
yeah.
the thing is,
Yeah.
it shows you what it actually can fire up imagination on other things, because considering how John and Mnemonic started, right? It starts off with Keanu Reeves. His early stuff is fantastic. I remember him in one. It was just a wee. It was only a wee bit part. I think it was before he did John and Mnemonic, and he was just
21
somebody's
Jump,
boyfriend,
something like
and
that.
it was all about the family and the son. The woman was widowed. She had a son and a daughter. The daughter was older, and she was going out with Keanu Reeves, who was her boyfriend, and the wee boy was becoming an adult, shall we say. So he had things he was worried about, and his mum didn't know how to talk to him.
Was this Parenthood? No.
It could have been. I can't remember the name, but it was the Keanu Reeves only in it. He was just a bit player in it, so he only was in it wee bits here and there. And the mum says, "I can't get through to my son." And he says, "Oh, don't worry. He's just talking about having a boner. I just told him all boys get it. Don't worry." And it was and even that he was only in it for about a minute here and a couple of minutes there. He was actually it was still memorable in his early stuff. And I must admit, I think in John and Mnemonic, he actually does still play very well, considering that's one of his early stuff. You look at the scene about sitting there. I want my shirts tailored. I want to be there. I want a $10,000 hooker every night. I want my shirts pressed and this, and it was basically him breaking down because he wanted the good life, but he's stuck with all the crap. And even that speech was really good. And I think it just goes to show how even now he's obviously just got better at his craft. How he started off really good, and he's just got better. You know what I mean? So that's basically. I know Kelly answered that. Somebody else says they really like Keanu Reeves. So yeah, I quite agree. I can understand why. Because I thought he was great in this, but I think he's great in most things he's been in.
I'm a
Keanu
Reeves fan. I definitely
I
like
can't
him.
think of anything he's been in that I didn't like.
The only thing I've seen him in that I wasn't really blown away was Kenneth Branagh's adaptation of oh my god, no,
oh, I know. Much Ado About Nothing.
Thank you.
I haven't seen it.
Maybe it's the Baileys. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I've got a litre and a half of Bailey.
That's my story. But yeah, he was in that, and he played a very sort of dark character, which on one hand his personality or his delivery was sort of kind of good for, but at the same time he didn't quite fit into that production for me. But I love him in everything else that I've seen him in, including the comedies. Bill and Ted, absolutely brilliant. Huge Bill and Ted fan.
Yeah, massive Bill and Ted fan.
John Wick films, he's really good in.
I've still cleared all the second, third, and I know the fourth one is coming. Because it only needed one.
The second one and the third one, but I think he's still really good in them. The stories get a wee bit more convoluted, but that always happens with a sequel. But he's still really good in them because he still gives his all in it. So John Wick's character still has got. He basically can actually. He still plays it well. It's like Bill and Ted, the second movie and the third movie. The stories were a bit very convoluted, but the two of them were really still good in it, and that's the difference.
Yeah.
And I think with even the John Wick ones, even though the stories become more convoluted and less believable, considering it's the
but Bill and Ted, and I haven't seen the last one, but Bill and Ted had probably the best message planet Earth there is.
It did. It was.
Aye.
Be
Be
excellent.
kind to everybody.
Be
kind
excellent to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was. It was. It was
Well,
very
yeah,
zen.
good.
It was very.
Yeah.
Said it all, really.
Yeah. And Archer Collins, right? Tomorrow World did lie to us so much that they were they told us would be happening.
Yeah, I've
10 years
already replied to him, but we do have them. We have flying cars, we have hoverboards, we have Iron Man suits. They're
Just on
just not
TV.
available to the public.
Yeah, and I saw, Jim, you put in the comments that guy that's got the something equivalent to the Iron Man suit with the propulsion on his arms, like he wears it, and he shoots across back and forth to the aircraft carriers.
That's
With the
actually
suit?
the UK Navy.
Oh, that is so fantastic to watch. I've seen loads of those videos.
See, I thought that one was fake. There was one of them.
It's actually real, but obviously, if you're trying to board a ship in the middle of the night to throw like a rope ladder down so that the storming crew can come aboard, that suit must be making so much noise. No one on the ship trying to board is like.
I would be curious to know what it actually sounds like up close. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you look at how many people actually think the thing from what was the James Bond one where he's actually got the suit, which people still think that suit's real. But it was never an active. It was never a working suit. It was just the premise of it. So anytime somebody was shown, there was basically a crane lifting them up and swinging them across. But people still think this jet suit was working. And
We are rapidly approaching the Star Trek inventions from the 1960s.
To an extent, because they're already talking about they're getting down to the tricorder. They're still trying to work that one out. But I think we need to, because when somebody actually shows you something that is a working model, sometimes I would need to see it working rather than just a TV show, because the problem is you can actually make anything look real nowadays.
Yes, you can, but if you take the not the tricorder, the data pads, where they had instant access to information in the palm of their hands. Less than an hour ago, you pulled up an iPhone.
Yes, I'm aware of things like that because the technology, tablets, iPhones, Android, whatever, we have got that at the touch. But I'm talking about the more science fiction type, because they are still working and stuff. Like, for instance, the tricorder, they're already getting that where they're actually they're basically got the hand scanner in effect. Doesn't go too deep, but it can still give the basics on like blood pressure and stuff like that. So they're working on that and they're getting so far with that. But I'm talking about the more science fiction stuff. Like, for instance, the hoverboard type stuff. Like, you've seen the one with the guy sitting on the one with it's almost like what do you call it? It's not it's like a hover bike, but it's it's got maybe 8 or 10.
I've seen it. Yeah.
It's got 8 or 10 of the propellers as it
I've seen it. Yeah.
And flying up. I would be a wee bit skeptical of that, because yes,
that does look
on a small scale you can take me, but you're talking about, look at his centre of gravity. His centre of gravity is above all that.
Yeah, I know. It looks a bit scary.
Yeah, you know what's going to happen is if you've got something. If he was being a biker, right? I ride my motorbike, and I've got full confidence in it because the centre of gravity is the weight of the bike. Doesn't matter how tall I am. If I want to actually speed up or be a bit more secure, I lean into the bike so I'm lowering the centre of gravity.
Yeah.
He's got all the jets, and then his bike's above it with him sitting above it.
I know, it's very precarious looking. Can you imagine if he was in like a really big, like a windy day as well, like wind gusts?
The fact is, how realistic as that, and it looks great when you see it going across screen and stuff like that. But because I know
But
the center of
you
gravity
see,
is off,
I
it
don't
wouldn't work.
care how realistic it looks. It's the idea.
I like the
Mhm.
ideas.
The
That's what I'm saying.
idea
It's but when they're
that is
actually putting it
someone.
as if this is a working model, that's when I
Yeah,
become skeptical.
that I understand. But I like the fact, hey, here's an idea, here's a
Yeah.
visual concept. Then there will be people like all of us on this call going, do you know what? A stiff reason this guy is upside down.
Yeah,
But the idea is there.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it will
Yeah.
work. The idea is there, and there will be really clever people coming up with a way to make it work, make it happen. And
Absolutely. And the fact that the idea is there is all that's needed now. It's oh, we've lost Sadako.
I never bounced them. No, it's not me. Don't blame me.
I'm sure he'll
Um,
be back.
Come back, Sadako.
I'm actually looking for things. It's just when we're talking about that, it is.
I know what you're saying, Jim. I think that the fact that these things are being conceived and these are the early prototypes, and we all know everything's had an early prototype,
Yeah.
and things that are wildly successful now have had an early
Have you
prototype.
not
So
actually seen the prototypes that have been put forward by certain companies? Have you not seen them?
Not the prototype. I was going to actually respond to what
There.
Well
How
was
about those
saying.
prototypes?
We don't have replicators per se,
mm,
but on the
but we have,
International Space Station, they have a 3D printer.
yep,
They don't need to have the material. They just send up the stuff they need to actually print whatever they need to
Yeah.
print.
3D
Yeah.
printers, because you could do it with the carbon fibers, you could do it with plastics, whatever. But yeah,
there were articles popping up within the last year. I think that they were working on organic matter with it.
yes,
So
they're trying to do that. Yeah.
and that's the first thing that popped into my head. Here come the replicators from Star
Mhm.
Trek. It's
So
all
did you
happening.
see
It just
it
takes time.
from the Book of Boba Fett? Do you like there?
I've seen the memes,
Right.
but what in the living holy Bible
Yeah. Somebody's
Torah
actually
am I
says,
looking at?
let's make them all mods in the future. So we'll give them the bikes with all the mirrors, because that's what mods do.
Yeah, I know.
So you can see how cool you look right in.
Yeah. I used to be a mod. I used to be a mod when I was younger, but I never had a scooter. And then when I did get a bike, I got a Harley, so I went from a mod to. But I like to dress as a mod because it was a lot smarter. But when I was going for a bike, I definitely didn't want one with about 50 mirrors. And somebody said, "Yeah, that looks cool. Let's make them look like that." And you're sitting there thinking, really,
No.
somebody's
Yeah.
actually put that forward as a good idea for the show. So, but anywho, there was something about Johnny Mnemonic. Remember, I was saying earlier on about subverting expectations. I'd said there was certain aspects of this movie. Some of them had very typical tropes, but they had some parts where they subverted what to expect. So they had the typical trope of the preacher, the very strong man. Everything they're trying to do, can he kill him? It's almost like a Terminator type trope. So you're always
Yeah.
going to have somebody that they can actually best until somebody does something which is what you would expect.
But not only that, back up just a couple of steps before that. Whoever is giving the order to Johnny, obviously shady organization, there is power behind it, they have structure, they have money, all of that is already in place. So it's a lot of stereotypes and tropes being chucked in, but it's really well crafted to tell this part of a journey or part of a story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm just actually Yeah, but the thing is, the part it subverted my expectations, which surprised me, considering when this movie was done, was right at the end when the preacher started getting up after he'd been burnt to a crisp.
That was a great moment because
Yeah,
I
you
was
just see the
all in.
movement
I
of
was
the
just like,
arm,
oh, here he
and
comes.
then the head turning, and then Ice T turns around, get that garbage out, and you realise they're lifting it up. But it's almost like the Terminator sort of getting back up after he had been burnt.
Yes. And it
And
would
then
have
you're
been
expecting this, and it's just a case of no, they're just lifting them up, and it is so well done because you're sitting there thinking, how the fuck how's he survived? And then you realise he didn't.
but
To
that's the
me,
usual
that's
thing that happens is they
yes,
all survive and then something, and then at the at the last minute, even like in Die Hard, this is the same thing where they
yeah,
have that last minute scene where the baddie sort of gets one last shot and drags themselves up somehow, and then and it's just that great little jump scare at the end. But that was a great sort of um,
it was because to me
kind
it
of a
actually
joke,
took it
kind of
right
a
out of it. Took it right out of it because you're just sitting there thinking, wow, he's getting up. He's not actually dead. And then you realise there's just, to me, that's subverting expectations because when you start seeing the hand moving and then the head moving, you're thinking he's getting up. And you're sitting there
not
going,
only that,
oh, and then
but
it basically they just turned it on its head and he's just getting lifted.
not only that, but they built the preacher up to be this nigh
Yes.
on indestructible thing because
Oh,
he's got so many mods himself. He's
yes.
got so many artificial tech in his body.
Yes.
Got so
And
much
Not
of it.
only that,
he's
but the
been knocked down
conviction
and
as
stuff
well.
like that. He'd been shot and it didn't affect him.
But
got
no,
run over
that's
by
what I'm
that
saying.
car.
It is like you can be modded through oblivion.
There's that bike
What
there
he
I was
brings
talking about.
is he has the conviction.
Yes.
That's the bike I was talking about. So look
Oh, that's
at the
different to
centre
the
of
one I was
gravity.
thinking.
Right, look at the centre of gravity there. And that's the type I was talking to Archer was actually asking if it was the bed spring one. I know what one he's talking about. That was one they tried out and they couldn't get it
You
working.
see
But
on
they've
a
actually
craft
look
like
at that.
that,
Look at that
I
centre of
would be
gravity.
so panicking over where I'm keeping my arms and legs.
Yeah.
Because
There's
if
yeah.
you're
there's
1
other
millimeter
ones like
outside,
that
your
one there.
knees meet.
There's other ones like that one there. But
There was one that had the four that were in that position, but there was like two on each side, and they were enclosed. Like that one. Yeah. And that seemed safer to me to a certain extent because they could have a shield over the blades to some extent. But that one, the first one that you just showed in the bigger image, looks terrifying because what happens if you hit a flock of birds or something? Not only are you going to destroy the birds, but you're going to crash.
So you're getting ones they're now looking at this type of thing, and you're sitting there thinking, really? But
Well,
the
it's
ones when
prototype.
they're actually showing them work as if they're flying, like this one here.
Just reminded me of that Eddie Izzard sketch, but he's suggesting what if bird strike? Like, does it make you actually think of birds actually on a suicide mission to make sure the plane crashes? Anyone, bird strike!
The bird thing is, although we do find it hilarious, it's still something that's extremely dangerous to modern air traffic.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. But see, when we're talking about the sci-fi part of the science fiction, see, I like the Cockney Spock's definition. It's science fiction if it's something that could be done by science in the future at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, for instance, a holodeck to an extent is science fiction because you can actually have photo things that it couldn't. I don't think it could actually.
To some extent, I feel like
bullets and stuff like that that couldn't. Just
Star Trek's already given us the roadmap. All we
Yes,
need
but
to do for a proper holodeck is to invent hard light.
yes, but that's the thing is, holodecks to an extent you can have it because you can have light sensitive, so they can show. So you could be in and it actually all around you could look like certain things, so you can have that visuals. But the fact that things could materialize, it's the transporter parts that, as the Cockney Spock says, there's certain things that if you can't believe, then they're not science fiction, they're science fantasy, because it's not something that ever could be done. And I think teleportation, I quite agree with them with things like human teleportation ain't going to be something, because if you take me, break me down, and teleport me over there, then that's no me, because you've broke me
Brundlefly.
down, you've effectively killed me and me.
That's more a philosophical question, but I
No, but
think
to me, but the fact is, if you have to break down a structure to rebuild it over there, it's no teleportation. It's something different. But what I'm saying is, I don't think it'll ever happen. You'll not be able to teleport a living thing. They've done
so I'm thinking of it
they've
from another, and
teleportation of certain atoms or something like that, and it's very theoretical at the moment. But what I'm saying is there's certain parts that are science fiction, because in the future you can see them going towards that. Like the communicators were science fiction at the time. Now they're fact.
Well,
Whereas
yeah,
technically, they
but,
should change it. They
to
should change it
science
to science
fantasy.
future.
Or science fantasy is basically a bit more with a lot like the breaking the light barrier, which if nothing can travel faster than the speed of light, then you can't travel faster than the speed of light. So if somebody's done in the science fiction, they're traveling faster than the speed of light, then that's science fantasy, because in reality they say nothing can travel
you
faster than the
see,
speed of light.
there's so many things I would like to comment on here, but let's do the teleportation first. I see it not as you being broken down to atoms. I see it as you being slipstreamed to a different point. Yes, you will be minuscule molecule, atom parts, whatever you are, during the transportation, but you're not a copy. You're not faxing yourself from point A to point B. You're
Yeah.
actually moving the whole physical entity of you from
Yeah.
point A to point B.
See, the thing is, I don't think it'll ever happen that you teleportation of a living piece of matter.
That's
I don't
already
think
been
it'll
done
ever.
apparently in Australia.
No, accordingly, they've done.
Well, actually, I think it was inorganic matter.
I thought it was atoms. They've done things like with atoms, but I don't think with living matter, because they did it with atoms, and it was all to do with it. It was a particular atom it could only work with because it has
It was a
a
prediction
relationship with
model, if I remember
something
it
or other.
correctly, but they did manage to do it and prove that it was impossible for it to have moved that distance on its own.
Yeah,
But still,
that's what I'm saying.
we're talking the technology today when it comes to this. We're talking The Fly, Jeff Goldblum film from 80s.
Yeah,
Yeah,
science.
Brundlefly. Yeah.
See, that's what I'm saying. Even Colin agrees with me. He draws this distinction, but I think there's certain programs which I love. I can't deny that I love them, and yeah, I still call them science fiction because they're classed as science fiction. But to me, certain aspects of them are science fantasy, because they're just there for the good ideas, but it's not something I'll ever think, if I lived forever, I would ever see coming around, because I don't think physically they can be done, and they'll never be done.
Well, until
I
they,
know
yeah,
I know based on thingy that
But let's
things
go
could happen,
with
but there's certain
desire.
things that in the physical world, certain things can't happen. And I think no matter what people wish of science fiction, like give the basic one, they're saying nothing physically can travel faster than the speed of light. So if nothing can travel
Except
faster than the
speed
speed
of
of light,
light.
even in the future, they can't have something that travels faster than the speed of light, because they're saying nothing can travel faster than the speed of light.
But that's
So,
back to the understanding. But I'm gonna go when it comes to the wishes and desires, which I think is what mainly drives innovations of humans. We will settle planet Mars before most of us have passed on. And there will be, and I will give you this, the shortest distance to get the phone call to Mars at the moment is 4-minute round trip. So it's 8 minutes, send a message, and get the response back. And that is if someone sits on the other side and responds immediately. But when we start having the requirement, the need to talk to someone on Mars, there will be clever people inventing that. But I did have a more cheeky question, and I know the audience here.
Oh.
Raise your hand if you would not want a real-life functioning sonic screwdriver.
Oh, yes, please.
No, I'll raise my hand.
Exactly. You don't care how it works. You just want one.
No, I'll raise
Yeah.
my hand. I don't want a sonic screwdriver because it is the destruction of Doctor Who, the sonic screwdriver. I have got a number of them, and I would not want one because it destroyed Doctor Who. So if anybody gets it, it's destroying their life as well. Because the sonic screwdriver suddenly comes in and he goes, I'll give you an
Well, that's the
example.
fault of the writing and allowing that to become
Yes,
a plot
but-
driver rather than just a
Yeah.
prop
So,
for an occasional scene.
yeah,
Yeah.
something's happening. We need to find out.
Oh, it's stupid now. I mean, it is
Right,
stupid.
no
It doesn't
problem.
put me off having one, though.
This tells me now that we've been invaded by 50 million troops and they're going to kill us all, and the only way to stop them is phone this number. And that's effectively what the sonic screwdriver is. You imagine actually something like the sonic screwdriver. To me, the sonic screwdriver should be, oh, I need to take that screw out.
It should. Well, it.
That's
I don't.
Exactly. It
I
should
don't-
be, but it's more the cheeky nature of it.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
I
more-
think.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, it was more. I understand that it dug the writers out of so many plot points and all of that. And I'm not the biggest Doctor Who fans, but I kind of like the idea, the concept that you have. For essence, it's a magical wand, but it obviously does have some kind of technology behind it. It's more
You're
that
right, actually.
concept that
Yeah.
we're after.
Yeah, but the fact is, you've got this, right? In the program, they've got this. So I'm just based on what I saw in the program. He goes, and then he's looking at it, going like that, and then telling you everything that he has just found out. No screen on it, nothing. But he could just look at it, and it basically tells him everything.
Oh, that's the
And you're sitting
failure
there
of
thinking,
of
really?
the current writing. Yeah. That's
Yeah, but the
that's that.
fact is, you can only base a sonic screwdriver on the writing. And a
Yeah, well-
sonic screwdriver, based on the way they've described it,
Yeah, which is a joke at the moment.
exactly.
It's way
I mean,
overused.
that's why Sylvester McCoy actually says he didn't want a sonic screwdriver, because he, even in the early stuff, he says that they were starting to use the sonic screwdriver
Too
to
much.
get them out of things too much.
Yeah,
So
and
he didn't
Doctor
want
Who
the
always
sonic
used to be about
screwdriver
thinking your
because
way
of
out of
that.
a problem.
Uh,
Yeah.
He wanted the Doctor to work his way around a problem, not
Absolutely.
sorted. Now we can go. And that was basically, that's why Sylvester McCoy says he didn't want it. And
Yeah, that's
I
absolutely
agree
fair
with
enough.
that. And it was basically, the fact is, you put a sonic screwdriver anywhere else and you're going to get the same. So anybody's life will be screwed up with one of these because they'll become too reliant. The sonic screwdriver is the Twitter of Doctor Who.
Right. I want to go back to what Jim said before about like the possibility of colonizing Mars.
Yeah.
Now this is the thing. I have heard this. I saw this on YouTube the other day that someone apparently they went into a coma, and during the coma, I think they had this kind of spiritual exchange with someone from the future, and they came back with like a lot of future knowledge, which they wrote down in a diary. They didn't like publicize it to the world. They just wrote down hundreds of notes about what they'd seen. And apparently in the future, according to him, by the future, they will colonize Mars, and there'll be a huge environmental catastrophe that will basically, like, Mars will basically, everyone who's moved to Mars basically will be killed in. So it's like there'll be a colonization. It will be a horrific failure, and apparently there's going to be a war on Earth and everything else. So it's like, I'm almost wondering, is that a warning? Is that
See, I'm in, I suppose, we'll see camp. Yes, I can see them having a colony in Mars, but I can't see it being colonized to that extent because everything would have to be shipped up: oxygen, food, everything. Which means
Actually, no,
well,
that's not entirely accurate, and
if you
it's
bring,
actually proven through Andy Weir's book, The Martian. Yes, you need material from Earth, but you don't need that much to make Mars a habitable planet. Yes,
PJ,
no, it's not going to turn completely green with massive oceans and everything if we go total recall, but you don't need that much. It basically have the same chemistry. It lacks oxygen. That's true enough, and we don't have the technology to make the oxygen.
we've got plants. We can bring plants. They can like reproduce oxygen. Like
They can, but that will take thousands
in
of
an
years.
oxygen environment, they can produce it, but they can't take the even the carbon. There's no carbon dioxide. It basically is a void on Mars. So
What
they
about-
can't take something and actually take something from nothing. And that's the fallacy. That's why I'm saying is I don't think it'll be colonized. Yes, there'll be domes, but everything will
Domes,
need
yeah.
to be shipped up. And then once they've got the dome set up and the oxygen filters and the oxygen shipped in, they could put plants, but they're still going to have to supplement it.
We don't need to ship oxygen in. Oxygen is fairly easy to create because it's such an easy element. But yes, it would take a lot of power to create it. And unfortunately, the best technology we have at the moment is solar panels. And at Mars, they will not produce enough. You would literally have to have a continent of solar panels to generate the energy required.
But that's why I don't think I can see it being colonized, but not to the extent that thing. So yes, there would be a small colony for scientific research or whatever, but I don't see it being expanse colonized or something like that.
No, I agree. It will be something like the International Space Station.
Yes, so it'll be just to me. That's how it's going to be because they would have to put too many resources in, and it will never be self-sustaining. Because Babylon 5, right? On the moon, there's basically the Mars is colonized, and they say we don't want to be part of Earth. So Earth says, fine, we're not going to give you any of the resources you require, and all they do is they bomb the dome.
I'll go even shorter than Mars on you with that one. I go Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein, where the moon is bombarding planet Earth and saying, go screw yourself, we don't want to be ruled by you anymore.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. So that's why I don't want something like that, because that's the Twitter of the Doctor Who universe, and it would be the destruction of other universes. And it's certainly not something that they're going to go, Mars, and fix it. But I think Mars is actually going to be colonized, and it's just going to be a scientific research station. End of story. I don't think it'll ever be colonized to that extent. And as for time travel, we only time travel in one direction.
I think what Archer said is more likely, and it brings me to the film Alien, and when you get the Nostromo, which is this huge, I believe it's like a huge mining ship, because Colin said, to be honest, you would probably be better off to develop mining asteroids for resources and things like that.
Yeah.
That seems to be more reachable as a goal once they get past the propulsion issue, propelling it through space and because in Alien and Aliens, they show that they have to go into hypersleep because it takes them so long to get to get back home and to get out there. But they are in a sense, mining.
You know what
So
one other thing that's interesting in Alien is that we actually see when Harry Dean Stanton is looking for the cat, Jonesy. And he does go to a dark deck, and there's actually water falling down. So it's almost like there is the kind of almost a cycle of rainwater within the ship. Like
I think it's like it's meant to be coming off like a cooling unit, like condensation. That's what I think, but I know what you mean, because that's actually when I first saw it, and the first few times I saw it, I can remember thinking the same thing. Like, is that supposed to be like an alternative ecosystem in there or something? But I think it's meant to be the condensate coming from the huge cooling system that would have to be there. Just a guess.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a little bit of a curse, because most of us that do like sci-fi, we tend to kind of like, oh, hey, they did this scientific thing, and you may do, okay, maybe not when we were watching stuff like that's being mentioned now. You didn't have Google back then, but today you go, it's like sonar in space, and I hate to reference the show, but no, sonar requires a physical medium to travel through.
Yeah, I was wondering that one.
Which doesn't exist in space.
Well, when you've got sonar in space, you certainly have an STD.
You certainly do. But there is a little bit of that, and I think maybe we are a bit harsh on the people doing the dreaming. But then again, I also go back to one of my favorite Heinleins besides Starship Troopers is How the Spacesuit Will Travel.
Yeah.
Where he digs in so deeply. This is why the spacesuit was built this way. This is why it's a white spacesuit, because it will reflect sunlight, which otherwise would cook you.
It's been a while since I've read the Heinlein books, but I have read Half Spacesuit Will Travel and Stranger in a Strange Land, but it has been a good number of years.
How Spacesuit Will Travel, for me, the thing that I will always remember is Mother Thing.
I love that scene. When they go and
I'm
they
actually
consult
on
Mother.
the Dungeon Crawler Carol book 4, so after that I might actually go back and do a couple of the Heinlein books.
And an interesting segue from talking about the Heinlein story, Starship Troopers, is that he had the actress that was in Starship Troopers was also in Johnny Mnemonic.
Yep.
As a bodyguard, and I thought she did a really good job. I thought she was very very entertaining.
I don't understand why, but I didn't recognize her face initially.
Yeah.
That was the one I did recognize. The one person I didn't recognize was Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah, they did a great makeup job on him. That's for sure.
I didn't recognize it. It was only when Jim had actually said who he was.
I really honestly wouldn't have known if Jim hadn't said. I wouldn't have known that was Dolph. Do you know who he looked like? Was Chris Christopherson.
Yes.
And if you've seen the Blade films, Chris Christopherson is in those.
Yes.
But he looks more like Chris Christopherson in that role as the preacher, almost like scarily so.
That's what I kind of like about it. I know he's there, but he doesn't look to me like Dolph Lundgren. No,
it's a brilliant character, brilliant makeup and costuming. I loved the concept. I think that's what I liked most about this film was its concepts. They made the bodyguards all sort of mechanically augmented females. They had the preacher, where I thought was the coolest thing going, which was that huge dagger that he had that had, of course, was shaped as a crucifix on the hilt, of it. So conceptually, to me, it actually felt like I was watching a comic book come to life, which was a good thing.
Yes.
Which I really enjoyed. It was a little dated.
Well, we're talking 1995, but I agree with you. It's comic book coming to life.
Yeah. and that's the fun part of it, and that's what I think you need to do when you watch it, is just enjoy it and imagine it's just literally like a comic book come to life. Things don't have to make sense necessarily. However, they did a wonderful crossover into current times, I suppose,
Yes,
in as much as they used, they basically, the film was about,
a pandemic.
pointing out that big corporations are in it for the profits,
Yeah, and
and
there's a
actually had
pandemic
cures
in
for
it.
things
Yeah, which
that
we
they
all
weren't
know is out
sharing.
there that are quite happy to actually sell, especially in the States, a drug that somebody needs. They're quite happy to charge $200-300 for. But
Hmm.
when they're actually giving the same drug to people in countries that can't afford it, they'll charge the couple of dollars that actually it costs,
Well, this is it. Well,
because
it's
to
it's
get them
more
in there, and also
profitable.
it allows them to use other drugs to test on people who can't afford it, so they can give them other drugs.
Yeah,
And
it is. It's
it is, it's quite 2021. So it was with the pandemic about the stuff and the like. And
yeah.
see, my theory with this, Colin, with the STD, is I think the people who wrote it and were writing it had no idea, and one person did and didn't like what it was doing, because we all know TOS, the original series, TNG, DS9, Voyager, and Enterprise sort of throw out that, but they usually put it down to VOI or ENT. So we are aware what they are, but most of them are broken down to 3 letters. I think the people who are writing it had zero concept, and somebody has actually said it as a joke. Why don't we call it Star Trek Discovery? And they went, great idea. And the person sitting there going,
Yeah, I
laughing
definitely
up his
believe
sleeve,
that there must
because he
have been
knew it
someone
would
on the
be down
inside.
as STD, and it was too late by the time they realised what people would call it, because it had already been made and actually advertised as that name, Star Trek Discovery. And I think somebody had a good laugh at that.
Another thing with it, and I do not know how true this is, and I don't know exactly where I got the information from. It might have been Gary from Nerdrotic, but apparently a significant portion of the first season was stolen from an Egyptian game developer in
Yes,
the single
basically, yeah.
human
An ass,
and that's
Anasadine,
something as
Anasadine,
yeah.
basically, and he couldn't fight it because he didn't have the cash. His mum and dad were ill, and he was looking after them and stuff like that. But yeah, they nicked it, the tardigrade and everything.
And the weird thing is, when you look at the drawings that this guy did, it isn't just, oh, it's just the tardigrade. Okay,
I know all the
well, one,
characters.
but it was like a redhead, a black woman, a blonde guy in love with a black guy. Um,
It was
there's
there was
so
about
many.
nine characters were all identical, even
Yes.
the way they dressed in the game and on the first season of the show. And they yeah, justice for an ass. It was but yeah, I remember it
But
from
it
Neurotic.
wasn't just character; it was the actual roles they were doing.
Yes,
They were carrying out. Who was the doctor? Who was the engineer? Who was the captain? Who was this?
but even for someone who stole the ideas, they still fucking couldn't actually write to save themselves.
Hmm.
And that's the problem. So they basically, that's why reboots don't work. I was watching, was it Doomcock or Critical Drinker, were talking about how reboots and soft reboots. There was one of them, I can't remember who it was, and it was basically talking about why they do soft reboots. And it was a
Um,
case of a soft reboot is taking the
I think
characters, some of
I think
the older characters, mixing them in to sort of continue the story with a new cast. So, like,
But
we use Star Trek.
that is why he's called Jar Jar Abrams now, because
Yeah,
he actually publicly admitted, I think it was Hollywood Reporter, whoever it was, that he went out publicly in front of journalists bragging, "Oh, George Lucas, you're so crap. I could do in one film what it took you 3 films back in the 70s to make." And he
So
was
it was
just
the
like,
drinker, but it's actually a good. His is a good breakdown, and it's
Yeah.
because he basically saying that, like for instance, they do the Ghostbusters, the Afterlife compared to 16, and how one actually tries to do a homage to it, and the other one is try to do a soft reboot. But the characters they bring in and they just basically just throw them away. They also did
this
did Star Wars. They was doing Star Wars how they brought in Han and stuff like that, but they didn't do anything with them and just to kill them off. So these characters are great, but in effect, it's the exact same story. They're just retelling and they're just trying to actually, it's a soft reboot, even though they're telling you it's a continuation. It's not, it's just the same story rebooted and they're
it's
just wanting to bring different
definitely
characters
false
in.
advertising, but the people they're talking to are people like us that grew up on Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who. Okay, I'm not 100% Doctor Who, but did like a lot of Doctor Who growing up. I didn't watch it religiously like I did with Star Trek and Star Wars, but oh crap, I missed the point. I forgot.
Well-
I had just had it on the tip of my tongue. It is.
It's the fact
They're
that
trying
we're
to
the ones that
sell
are
you-
viewing it and we're the ones that can notice it.
Yeah, we're the ones noticing it. It's like, hang on, you had an amazing universe to build on. Star Trek and what was this? Kathleen something and Ryan Johnson. No, he's
That's
Marvel.
Star Wars. That's Star Wars.
Marvel, yeah. I keep forgetting because these.
Did you see what they were
involved in
saying
everything,
about? Did you see the Doomcock one about Kathleen Kennedy actually losing power and the reason the way he's actually put it down is actually quite a good story because there's a scene where there's the dwelling and it's like Uncle Owen and and oh God,
what
was his aunt's name? Aunt
What are you talking about?
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Aunt
What's
Beru.
the old-
Aunt Beru.
Aunt Beru.
Right.
Beru.
Because I was going Bertha and that.
Oh no.
There's a bit in the newer one, the Book of Boba Fett, that there's there's 2 people getting dragged out their house by these thugs, and they're beating them up, and it's almost like how the way they're getting beat up is like the scene from with Aunt Beru with the skeletons. But these thugs are not only beating them up, they're writing on the wall, putting 2 symbols. And one of the symbols, according to, if you look at the alphabet for Star Wars is a K. So they put K and K, and he's saying that's symbolising that KK kicked the shit out of Star Wars, the original film, because they're trying to make it look it's Doomcock, and it is absolutely hilarious. And he says, and then there's another part where it's the same thugs that are doing something else, and it's basically he's saying that the people who are doing it are basically slagging Kathleen Kennedy, and it's showing she's got zero power because they're saying she destroyed it, and they're using he's using the problem is
I
the
believe
stuff he's doing actually when if that symbol was K and they've put KK twice, and they've got the people who look like the aunt and uncle getting beat up where they in the original where they got killed and they were just the skeletons, but they're getting beat up in a similar position and the house looks identical. It's effectively saying KK destroyed it and she's been in just to actually kick it in, and this is meant to be her.
But this is where I had a little bit of a theory, and I know there is no Hollywood snitches that deserve stitches that is watching our stream, but I do believe there is starting to become a little bit of a subculture, and it's always been present in Hollywood because you've seen the cheeky jabs where there is writing or a dialogue or a single line that is just snuck in there because the executive producer that are just like, oh, make this happen, do this film, do that. They have no clue. If you put Kathleen Kennedy in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and asked her only questions about Star Wars, she wouldn't pass round 2. She would not.
I'm
And
just
she
looking at the
also have
history of
been
my.
in Star Wars universe production producer for what, 30 years now? I doubt that she could get past level 2 or round 2.
Yeah, well, the video I was talking about is Doomcock, and it's called "Huge Insult to Kathleen Kennedy Hidden in the Book of Boba Fett: Proof that Kennedy's power is gone." I'm trying to see. It's only 11 minutes. I'm just trying to upload on it. Pause it. He uploaded it the 11th. So yesterday I uploaded it. So he did. And it basically is quite entertaining to watch, and the discussion of the Book of Boba Fett and how it's in it. But I would definitely give it a go, just so you can see what they're talking about within it. And I'm trying to see. And the critical drinker was why modern movies suck. The soft reboot.
I haven't watched that yet, but that's on the watch list for
Yeah.
sure.
And
Yeah.
that was the 11th of January as well, so yesterday as well. So I've watched both of them. So the Huge Insult and Why Modern Movies Suck. I would definitely recommend both
clearly
of
you
them.
have
And after all, if I can recommend the Critical Drinkers and Doomcocks, then they need to watch.
Sorry to jump
We've
in.
got,
When do
I
you
think
have
we've
time
got a
to see in the
junkie.
chat?
We've got a junk one.
2.
I've already
Oh,
got
there we
it.
go.
So I'm just reporting it. There you go. So we get. Oh, there's another one. And look,
Hey, extra clicks, extra views.
yeah, it's exactly the anyway.
There
I'm
we
just
go.
actually while I'm doing that, I'm actually reporting them as well.
Have a safe trip, Kellynch. We'll probably be here for a little while longer because we seem to be a very nostalgic track at the moment.
Oh yeah, safe travels, Kelly.
Yeah, definitely.
Catch you later if we're still on.
Yep, it's 10 o'clock, so we've been going for 2 hours, so maybe another half hour, I think.
2 hours and
We
about
might
5%
even actually talk about Johnny Mnemonic.
We'd need about a 6-hour stream to cover that.
Just to catch
get round to it.
No, apart from anything else, Johnny Mnemonic, I hadn't seen it up until watching it for this stream, and I thought it was fantastic. I'd heard so much about it, I had seen it.
I've learned something. I clearly need to stop recommending films to you. And I'm actually feeling like I'm maybe needing to delete that list that I've given because the shared list. Because
why is that?
No, because we get on sidetracks. Every time I have delivered a film or film recommendation, we've just been going like supernova in any different direction. And it's like, oh, this brought that back, and this is this memory, and this is this.
I know.
But that's the good thing about movies. Movies do that, especially classic movies, when they actually bring, like the Johnny Mnemonic, the computer scene, right? And when he's in the computer, it is old technology, but it's because of that old technology. Like, for instance, the bit when he's in and you see the dolphin and stuff like that, that reminded me of Mist, which set me off going to look for something on YouTube about Mist and then coming across the thing about the guy who designed Mist, and it was him talking about it. And then there was the bits and pieces when he puts on the visor and then he's these haptic gloves and he's doing all that. And I'm sitting there thinking of the only other one was Ready Player One, not the Pish movie, the book. And then going on it, and it basically took me on a side bit with that. And it does. And when we started talking about it, we go on a sidetrack about it because the movie has done that. It's the movie has actually given us something else because it reminds us of something else.
But this is probably why I do like that it brings me in. And whereas you've gone those directions, for me, the direction from if I watch stuff like Johnny Mnemonic, it is The Lawnmower Man. And to the other end, a film that came out in the same year, which is The Hackers. And I know you're not a fan of The Hacker or Hackers.
I remember it, but I don't think I've seen it.
Well,
See,
the
I
Hackers
had
remember
is
the
on
name.
my
Tim
list.
recommended it to me, and I watched it, and I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was great. I didn't think it was bad. I just thought it was okay because I thought it was the typical. See, because I've worked in IT for since 1981. I've worked in IT. Or sorry, I went back to university in 1981. Calculation. No, I didn't. 1984. So I've worked in IT environment since 1984, but I had a computer since 1981. That's
I
what I was
think I,
getting
I
at.
think Archer has a fair comment to what we're doing. We want to talk of the film and kind of review it, but it is more the emotions, the sidelines.
Yes,
And
Yeah.
if I'm gonna bring
which
in a
is true.
strange one when it comes into this film, John and Mnemonic, it's war games.
Yeah.
War Games is a fantastic one. Yet, do you wish to play a game?
Oh, I love that film. We
Uh-huh.
both. Well, fantastic film.
Definitely.
The,
I
the,
think
the,
all
the
great.
only
That's
solution is
it's a
not to
good
play the game.
entertainment one, which
Yes, nice.
it
Yeah.
has the same issues that, as I said, with me being in a computer environment since I was 16ish. So from 1981, then going through university, doing computer degree, working in IT support. The one thing I've always hated is typical movies always try and make it look sexier than it is. You with the screen, and then you see the screen going, woo, and then inside the screen, and they're turning left. There's buildings
You
falling
see,
down, and
I
there's
love that
effect.
over the top stuff in
Yes, but
Hackers.
I enjoy certain aspects of it, but when they go in, as if the movie's less about what they're doing and more about how it looks, then that's the parts I get. There was one that I'm trying to remember. It was only done about 10, 15 years ago, and it was about hackers. But it was nothing. You only saw the computer, so you only saw them typing. You never saw the screen because it was them describing what they're doing, which to me was better. Because if somebody says, "Right, I'm hacking into this firewall," spending 10 minutes with the vision of the firewall and I'm going doing, 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 and the thing going round it, to me that means nothing because I worked in IT. But him describing, "Oh, I'm just trying to go with this code and all that," so they didn't show any screens. And when they were trying to hack passwords, they were up across the road with a pair of binoculars, going, "Right, he's typed this letter, that letter, this letter. Oh, I can't see because he's leaned across and I've missed the last two letters he typed." And that's how they were hacking. They weren't hacking by, "Yeah, put a fingerprint scanner on it and then we're going to actually see what keys he pressed." And you're sitting there thinking, those are unrealistic. Whereas the one where somebody's actually higher up slightly and got a view of his keyboard and actually just watching what keys he pressed to log in, to me, that was a better hacking one because they just described what they were doing. They weren't
I,
actually trying to
I
show it.
work in the closer to the hacking environment than just normal IT support. And I can tell you, this film is written in 1995, Hackers, with Johnny Lee Miller, um, Angelina Jolie. There's a lot of other famous names in there.
Really?
Stephen Fisher. He's the
Uh-huh.
one I really like in it. But you even have the magician from Penn and Teller playing like your average, like, oh, I'm watching a computer and make sure that it's rebooted on time. But in this film, everything and anything that the IT society to make sure you can have your cash coming out of your bank card or your ATM, buying stuff of Amazon, making sure delivery is on time, you not getting your identity stolen, all of that is within this film from 1995. Every single thing, all of it is there. Even how the hackers will try and steal your stuff. When they jump into a dumpster to steal like the shredded papers, to try and figure out if someone written down a username and password.
Yeah.
all of that is within that film, and that's why I find it so powerful. We're now, what is it, 95 to 2022? That's, oh, my brain is dead. It's
Right. I'll give you an
27.
example. I saw there was a movie years back, and somebody was saying about passwords. How can I remember all my passwords? I've been told not to write them down but I've got something like 30 passwords. How can I remember them all? And somebody says, write them down. Just don't put them next to your computer. So you don't have a piece of paper with all your passwords sitting on your desk next to the computer. Maybe have it in a notepad and maybe third drawer down. And with a list of other things, it could just look like anything. He says, because if somebody comes into your house and steals your laptop or your base unit, do you think they're going to search your desk and every piece of paper you've got on your desk to see if there's a password there? No, they want to get that and get it out in case somebody walks in. So writing your passwords down for security in a book, as long as you don't leave it next to your laptop, because people do write passwords and then they put them on their laptop so it's on the corner of their screen and stuff like that.
That
So
was
if
the
a
old
laptop
days.
gets
Remember, you
stolen,
used to just put a sticky note on the front
yeah,
of your
exactly.
big desk
But
PC.
I say to people when I'm telling them, write your password down. Maybe like if you say, for instance, you've got a password, Bob, right? Or Bob, or password Bob, right? So the password is password Bob. Just put PB. That's to give you the hint of what it is. But if somebody says PB, how the hell do they know what that means?
But the
Or
thing is, I'm 100% with you on that one. And my dad hated computers until he was 76, 77 years old. But he suddenly started realizing, hang on, rather than me driving 3.5 hours to go to the garden store and whatnot, maybe I can do something online and I do something for 5 minutes and I will get it to me the next day instead. And I can spend those 7 hours for the round trip to do stuff. So he wanted to learn how to be online and do stuff. And I told him, it is not a friendly environment. There will be people trying to steal your stuff, your money, your everything. So I gave him something that I've always told anyone when it comes to passwords as we know it. It's passphrase. Come up with a word combination only you know.
Yes. Yeah.
Easy for you to remember. But then add a couple of numbers or another word or something, and then add what you need it for, whether it's in front of it or in back of it. So say it is, you have your 3 secret words, couple of numbers, and this is my bank login. It doesn't have to be the word bank. It could be the bank name or the
I'll give
bank
you an example.
manager you're dealing with.
One of the guys I used to work with, he used to tell everybody his password when they asked him. Because somebody would say, what's your password? They go, that's a secret.
Very good.
You see, I got that one.
Because that was his passphrase, but they didn't know, even if they actually clocked that maybe that's his password, they didn't know what was uppercase, what was lowercase, if he had a number to represent a number. So maybe the A was a 4, the O's were zeros or whatever. But
my favorite is
if somebody
always
asked him, he didn't need to actually say, if somebody said to him and he said it by mistake, it's password Bob. Oh, damn, I didn't mean to say that.
No. My favorite when it comes to
that's
passwords
a secret.
is, and always will be, your password is not long enough.
Oh God, yeah.
Anyone that's seen the memes, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Did you, was it or what was it? Was it Mitchell and Webb? That one? Or was it there was some
it would definitely have featured on Mitchell and Webb.
There was a comedian. It's basically a case of your password isn't long enough. Okay, I'll try this password. Your password isn't complex enough. Okay, I'll try this password. Your password has got a name in it. No, I'll try this password. And your password doesn't meet the complexity. Right. this is my password. It's taking my password, and you better accept it. 1 password already taken. And that was basically the whole. That was the joke. Is basically you get to the point where you get so annoyed at it, you make up this big long password phrase,
Yeah.
and so it says password already taken. And it was basically, I'm sure it was a Mitchell and Webb one. It did it. It was something, one of those types, but I can just imagine Dave Mitchell actually doing that because of your rant. Right. The name of the Wombles. But see, even if you take the name of the Wombles like Orinoco, so you might know what the passwords were, but do you know what one's the uppercase? Is it every second letter is uppercase, or is it just certain the first, last one, or one in the middle? Is there any of the letters that are being replaced? Has an E been replaced with a 3? Is an I been replaced with a 1? Is a 0 being replaced with an O, or an O being replaced by a 0? Is an A being replaced by a 4? Is a T being replaced by a 7? There's so many complex things you could do within that, and you already know how you would do your password. So all you need to remember is Womble. So which gives you Womble,
The
and it
number
gives
for
you
character replacement I will not advise. And anyone with access to Google, search for something that is called rockyou.txt. ROCKYOU.txt. It's a default brute force hacking list with the most common passwords, and it has those combinations into it. So if you have
yeah, but the problem is a lot
VEM
of
into
systems are
VEM
actually
and
catching out now.
V3M.
A lot of systems are catching up now. So they basically, if you put in your password incorrect 3 times, locks you out for 20 minutes the first time. You put it in again, it locks you out for a day. And if you put it in 3 times again, it locks you out for a week. So
Yes.
basically, they're basically they're catching up with the fact is brute force cannot work. So you can't do what they did in war games, just fire up the modem and just type hundreds of passwords, and then when it hangs up, you hang up, you dial again, and it sends the next bunch of passwords.
It is very true, but here's the very sad thing. The hacker that is attacking you only has to be correct one time.
Yes, but
Only
if
one time.
if the system you're in locks out after 3 times and then locks out and keeps locking out, even if it's only locks you out for
Come
an hour.
on, we've all grown up in the MacGyver era. See him go up and just like throw a little bit of dust on the pin pad, and he sees exactly what buttons you pushed. He just needs like 2 tries and he's in.
See, that's another thing. That's why it's things like that basically used to annoy me, because how many other people they're basically saying that's the only password. Then, like we've got keypads in all our doors. Different people have different passwords to access them.
Do you know
So
what's
it's
funny?
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry,
go
PJ.
ahead, Wen.
No,
No, I'm
that's all
actually
I was
dropping
saying.
the
It's
name in the
different
private chat.
passcodes.
Yeah. Do you know what's funny as well? Jim was just saying MacGyver, and I love MacGyver.
Yes.
Still do. But it's interesting talking about like throwing some powder or something on the keyboard to find out where the heavier oils are with the keystrokes, like maybe what the password was. And now with autofill today, that wouldn't even work.
Yeah, exactly.
because they might have created that password, a couple of years ago, but it just autofills now, and so those keys might not get manually typed on ever.
Yeah.
Because it's just relying on the the
Yeah,
autofill feature. So
it is as well, but also brute force doesn't work as well because a lot of systems do the lockout after a certain amount of times. You look at even your
yeah.
iPhone, right? You put in your iPhone password 10 times, it bricks your phone.
I have 3 characters for you when it comes to your iPhone. Google this. NSO.
Uh-huh.
It's an Israeli company that specializes in breaking phones, and not just phones, your secure encrypted files and everything. They're on the United States sanction list.
I can see
But
them. Yeah.
United States also bought their services so they could hack into phones.
But see, the thing is, unless you actually put in your alphanumeric thing, which is it 8 for the iPhone is the maximum? Because you can actually change it. It used to only be 4. Then they changed it to 4 or 6. Then they changed it. I think they can do alphanumeric 8. And if you actually just leave it at the alphanumeric 4 or the numeric 4, then yes. The problem is just taking your phone after somebody's logged in and just doing that down the screen to see where the buttons have been pressed.
But
Because
not only that, I dumped the link in both private and the public chat. The guy is called, weirdly enough, Deviant Ollam, but he will show how easy it is to get past any security door. He's even just breaking into a bank's front door, just going, look, the door is broken. I didn't even force it. I just told it to open. It's really MacGyver level. This is how you break a door.
see, the thing is, nothing's secure to an extent because there's going to be the only way to secure things is to put security, and even at that, there's a limit to what security you could put on.
But it's
Like for
essentially
instance,
the only way to keep a secret is if only 2 people know about it and one of them is dead.
yeah, it's the same as, let's see, for years my company kept saying to me, "Why have you not moved everything to the cloud? So and so says we should go to the cloud. So and so says we should go to the cloud. So and so says." I says, "No." I says, "If it's on the cloud and the cloud gets hacked, there's nothing I can do. Whereas if we get notifications somebody's hacking, I can go unplug. Nobody can get access to our servers because I've unplugged the network. And until we've got the security in place before I plug it back in." However, that's why I never put mines on the cloud for so many years. Eventually, the security got a lot better, so I was more comfortable. But everybody was at me from day one. Put it on the cloud, put it on the cloud, put it on the cloud. It's a lot safer. Da, 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 da. As in, it's not safer. It's just it's easier for us because we don't need to buy all the hardware. We just need to rent somebody else and they worry about the backups and all that. However, to me, my problem was security. If somebody hacked into the online, there's nothing we could do. We could phone maybe Microsoft and say, "Somebody's hacked our system and it's on your cloud." And then we could wait for the 8 hours for somebody to get back to us. Or I could go up to the wall and go, "Unplug." There, they can't get in now. We can resolve the issues, tidy it all up, make sure everything's all the security's up to date, and then we can plug it back in.
Yeah,
And
but
it's
this discussion is actually leading us really well back to the requirement for someone like Johnny Mnemonic to exist.
yeah, yes,
Because he is holding the data.
unhackable.
You have to find him. He's not unhackable.
It is
You have
unhackable
to find
because
him.
you need to find him. You need to also have the code.
Yes. But,
So you find him is one
but
thing.
technically, the story actually says that we can just take your head and then try to work it out for ourselves.
But then again, you take a server from somebody's site and take it away, and then you could just rip out all the data and then just build it up gradually. You've got no time frame for it, so you can take your time. Whereas if you're hacking into a system which is an active system, you've got a time frame before somebody finds out and switches it off. So that
It's sort of correct, but because I
you
had
take
the incident
everything out.
just before Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
both my operating system and my backup drive died. They're still functioning. They just cannot boot up. because I have bought new hard drives and everything. I am in the process, and it's taking me several hours because I don't have NSA or DCHQ or MI5 like processing power. It's going to take me a couple of days, but I'm breaking back into my old encryption to restore the data that I had. So I get back my bookmarks, I get back everything. It's because I know how to do it. Is it really that worthwhile since I didn't really have that much? But I'm just doing it because there might have been something I stored there that I want to recover.
Do you know why I worry about that? Right. So on this side, I've got a 3 terabyte hard drive. I've got a 3 terabyte hard drive, and I've got a 2 terabyte hard drive at that side. At this side, I've got a 5 terabyte TerraStation. And then obviously on my PC itself is 1 terabyte. So you can imagine I've got 2 backups of my machine on 2 different sets. But you imagine something that goes fry hardware. That means I've got 5, 10, 13, 14 terabytes. Bye. Gone.
Oh, just to answer Archer Collins' question, yes, that's the cover of one of the Dalek Empire spin-off audios, the final episode of Series 1, Project Infinity.
Yeah, I've got that. I've still not finished reading it, but I have listened to it.
I was just going to say, I have the only not able to hack. These are my 2 old hard drives. You can't hack them because they're not plugged in. You have to steal them from me physically, but this is where my old computer, all the streams, everything we've done for the last, 8 months now? It's on these. But because they're not plugged in, you can't hack them.
Yeah. I'm just trying to find something here. Hold on. I'll do research for it. It's easier. Where the hell is it? I can't find it. I'm looking for my Doctor Who audiobooks, and I can't find where they are. What would they under it be? Because I've got the Doctor Who list there, but it's actually just all the Big Finish stuff, and the Dalek Empire's no there. So maybe it's under Big Finish. I've got 14 groups of Big Finish, and the Dalek Empire stuff is it's not there. So there's 24 in that one. There is Christ almighty, how many's in that one? 20, 35 in that one, but I thought the Dalek one was there. And then in that one I've got another 50, no, 120 Big Finish ones. But I can't find my Dalek Empire one. How bad is that? I've got nearly 200 Doctor Who audios, and I can't find the one I've been looking for, my Dalek one, the Dalek Empire. I need to actually read that Dalek Empire. It's basically been on because I think there's 4. Is there 4?
Right. There's basically there's 4 series of it. It's basically like in the main range of the audios. There's 2 particular stories. There's the Genocide Machine and the Apocalypse Element. The Genocide Machine was a 7th Doctor story where the Daleks infiltrate this data store, and they gained a lot of information about how to fight humanity. And the Apocalypse Element is another one where they conquer this galaxy called Serifia. And there's a 3rd one, the Mutant Phase, which is kind of a paradox episode. That's with the 5th Doctor. And after that, they decided to do the spin-off series, which is basically building on what the Daleks gained there and how they use that to attack Earth's galaxy. And they did 4 seasons of it. There's the first season is 4 episodes. Invasion of the Daleks, The Human Factor, Death of the Daleks, and Project Infinity. That's the last one of the cover I've got. And then they did 3 sequel series.
See, I've got the reason I was saying 4 is because there's something in my head that I remember 4 series of the Dalek Empire. That's what I'm saying. I dug them out and I can't find them now.
Oh.
And I think it's because the Empire, the Enemy of the Daleks, the League of the Daleks, Brotherhood of the Daleks. So I can't even find them in my list.
The main range ones, the ones which the Doctor's in.
Yes,
Would it be under the same author though?
Yes, Nick Briggs, Nicholas Briggs. He wrote them all.
Let's see. No, I've not got it under. No, I've got them under Doctor Who, Big Finish Doctor Who, and I definitely cannot find them. The problem is they're unnumbered, so it's like Big Finish Doctor Who, the 5th Doctor, episode number 9, number 10, number 11, that type of thing. And it's only when I got into each of them it'll tell me the names of them all. So the over 100, nearly 200 of them, I'll need to go into them individually and actually do it. I will do it tomorrow. I've got a couple of comics to read. Because first is going to be my chill and read tomorrow. So I've got the Sentinel Comics came through the other day, so I'm going to read that. So after I finish my comics, I think I'll go through all my Doctor Who and get them lined up. Because after Dungeon Crawler Carol, I've caught up with my books, so I need more books to it. I'll put a couple of Heinlein's books into my drive time, and then I'll put the Dalek Empire books in as well. I just need to find the things.
Right,
so I'm glad after Colin asked and you rang me because it reminded me.
Yeah, just the Dalek Empire audios. They're a separate series to the main range. The Doctor's not in any of them. It's like
I know, but that's what I'm saying. That's why I recognise I had the name, but I've got them somewhere, and I think they're under the Big Finish. It's just because I've got so many of them, and I've literally some of them are down to what Doctor's in it, and other ones are actually the ones that I've got under Doctor Who themselves are just Big Finish and just a list of numbers, and it doesn't necessarily say what Doctor is in it. Like, for instance, one of the first ones I've got is called The Siren of Time. It doesn't tell me on my list what Doctor's in it.
That's all 3. So 4, so it's 5, 6, and 7
right,
together.
So it's 5, 6, and 7, so it has, because the image is there, but then you've got the Phantasmagoria. I'm assuming that's a newer one, but it's same again. Doesn't tell me what Doctors are in it. That's what I'm saying. I've got them all numbered, and I've got other ones that are Doctor related. I've just not organised it properly yet. I've just numbered them all. And that's the problem I need to find. Because there's a Genesis machine.
Genocide Machine. That's the 7th Doctor. Yeah, that's like if you listen to that gives a bit of backstory to the spin-off. Like it explains how the Daleks gained a bit more information on human psychology and.
Because I started listening to it. If I remember right, it started off where the Daleks are in charge of a planet and the humans are just there, and the Daleks are just part parcel of it, and there's no mass exterminations or anything. It's just they don't. And I didn't. I thought there's a weird one. I think I'll just go to another one because it just seemed a wee bit weird. But it had Manchester, just not got around to it again. I'll need to get around to it. So I will. And I will dig them out because I need to, because I wanted to finish that story and then get on to the rest. What's this?
Right, I'm gonna have to jump off. Everybody, I'm really sorry about that. I've just got a couple of
thank you for joining us.
A couple of things I need to do before bed here, and so reluctantly,
we'll be finishing up shortly as well.
Yeah. And I'll sneak in my. Go ahead.
I strongly recommend lemon sip and whiskey. And
I tried that.
If you're not brave enough, just do port and brandy.
Yeah, I've tried everything. I think I've tried everything except drain cleaner, and that's moving up the list now.
No.
Recommending
Take it off the list. Take it off the list.
Some toilet duck like Father Jack.
Don't take that off the list as well.
I won't have to worry about coughing though.
Yeah,
But
one of these.
so what's that?
Take one of these.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I wish it worked on that. Yeah.
Well,
Seems to work on everything else.
well, I did find
But right.
I did find an empty bottle of toilet duck.
Yeah. Dan said he did find an empty bottle of toilet duck. He was getting worried. So I'll say goodnight to you guys and say goodnight to everybody in the chat, all the wonderful people that have turned up again in the chat. Good night, everyone. And if Kelly's back home now and listening, have a very good night to her as well. So we'll catch you on the next one, next Saturday.
Yep.
Or this Saturday.
Catch you Saturday.
Take a window.
Ta-ra.
Lovely to catch up with you
Have a
again.
good one, and thank you for
All
joining.
right.
Gwen.
Yep. Good night.
Okay, might see you on
Bye.
Saturday. Bye now. Bye.
Yeah. Lovely. Okay.
Yep.
Good
Bye.
night.
Cool.
Good night.
Okay, we'll see you.
Yes.
Hope she doesn't take the toilet duck.
The vicar character. I think that's right. It is the one with the chip. With him and Kosh were just saying stupid things backwards and forwards, and it was to judge
Is his name
Talia's
Vicar?
reaction.
Isn't that the? Oh no! I think it is the guy that has like he pulls the top of his head off like
No,
data
he
from the
basically
next
takes his
generation.
hat off. He takes his hat off, and his brain is encased in a dome,
Yeah.
and then he takes the chip out of it and gives it to Kosh.
Is his name Vicar? I actually have to Google that now. Thanks for that, Colin.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know what character's talking about, and
Yeah, she's basically getting really upset at both of them because she's feeling like she's just there to like be played.
so
Right, Google, here I come.
I'm just looking. Vicar. When you put in Babylon 5 Vicar, it actually that's what he was called. I think just called Vicar. It's not VAKR. It's Vicar, as in like the Vicar of Dibley. That's why I'm getting half and half the pictures. Some of them I'm getting Babylon 5. Some of them I'm getting a Vicar.
Yeah, it's Vicar, but instead of Vic R, as in like the priest thing, it's Vicar, Vicker.
Yeah. Because that's some there. It's not a great picture. Oh, damn, wrong one. Share screen. It's a very small image, but as you can see, it's that one with the. So it is not the greatest image, but as I said, when you type in, you get Babylon 5. That's it, the scene there. It's the same again. It's a very small image, but he's
If you do Control Plus, you can increase the size of the image.
but it's the quality's rubbish. But
The
a lot of
quality
the
is
other ones
rubbish,
are
but you
better.
can increase the size anyway.
Yeah,
But yeah, no,
It's-
that's him. He's basically negotiating with him.
yeah,
That's a very
that's-
good recall, Colin.
Yep, definitely. So my Babylon 5 are actually back on my watch list again. The full set with Crusade and everything. So I'm
Yeah,
actually
you
trying
have
to
it. You have it as a physical copy now, don't you?
Yep, I've got the full box set. That there is the complete set. It's got all the movies. It's got Crusade. It's got the 5 seasons, and it's got a couple of other bits and pieces as well. So looking forward to it. I missed that one. What's that?
I think it's Colin showing his age. He remembers the 532 by 300, but I think it was 320, if I'm going to be honest.
I can't remember. Yeah. And even that was the one thing, the difference of the times. 80 gig was enormous. That was something you imagine something like 80 gig. Nobody would be able to fill that up in 1995. But even though he used a doubler, that's 160 gig. But we need somebody with 320 gig. We've got that much. What's this? The Library of Congress? Whereas now, they'd be talking about terabytes,
The
if not
Library of
more.
Congress is like 4 gigabytes. when
Yeah,
you
but that's what I'm
put it
saying.
down, but
And John and Mnemonic, he talks about what have they uploaded the Library of Congress, whereas nowadays, terabytes, if not more.
But you saw the 2 discs I showed you. That
Yeah.
is 512 gigabytes. I held in my hand, and it's enough to download the entire Wikipedia 10 times over.
Well, there you go. 256 gigabytes.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, nothing now. Considering if you broke that and took it apart, it would probably be about that size because it's mostly
Yep.
casing and security for it.
It's more
But-
plastic around it
Yep.
to keep it safe than there is.
So that's
actually.
256 gigabyte USB. It's nothing now. I remember when you were buying a 128 megabyte memory slot for £1 a meg. So for 128 meg,
512
you were paying
kilobytes RAM
120.
memory.
You were paying £120 for 128 meg, and that was when you had the money to expand your machine to its ultimate.
I know I'll alienate any kids that is still watching, but I remember back in the days, we had a special button on our computers that said turbo. You could go from 33 megahertz, 33 hertz to 66 hertz. And you basically double the power of your CPU, but you did pay the electricity bill for it.
Yeah, and I remember when I had my 20 megabyte hard drive, and I used a piece of software called Doubler. It didn't give you 40 megabytes. It gave you 35 megabytes because it still needed some space to run the software to double your space.
Yes.
And that cost for that piece of software to run to give you double the space you had. But it wasn't double. So when he was using the doubler, your
It
80
was
gig has
double
now
the
been
space you
upgraded
had
to
left.
160 gig. And I'm sitting there thinking, no, doublers never did that. They would use a part of that space. So they would double it sort of. But what they're doing is they're taking some of it away and then doubling that. So instead of doubling the 80 gig, they might have been actually only doubling 78 gig because they needed the 2 gig to install the software and run it. And it was things like that I was laughing at in this is because when they were talking about gigabytes and doubling it up and stuff like that, I'm sitting there thinking, that's not how doublers work. Doublers didn't give you an actual double what you had. It would install the software, create a partition, and then run the software, which would double up what was left. So you never got a full double. So that
Talking about that, the Russians are back in the chat giving you an extra view.
Next review. Oh, I'll block them. And I report them and that kicks them out. It just means they have to create new accounts every single time. It's crazy, but if they want to give me a new view, I'm okay with that. So, thank you.
The disaster area is covering exactly what it was. You needed space to install the doubler. and obviously he took it up, but whatever was left, it
Yeah,
managed to
but
compress.
that's why I was laughing in Johnny Mnemonic when he hits the doubler. Your 80 gig has been doubled to 160 gig, and I'm sitting there thinking that's not how doublers work. And basically because I used a doubler on my own machine
Come
years
on,
ago.
we have to, despite as brutal as we are, we have to give Hollywood some slack.
Yes, but
A
I could
little
understand it.
bit
But
of
and then he's
slack.
saying you've got 160 gig. Okay, don't overdo it. And then they says, right, we're going to put in 320 gig. Sorry, I've got a 250 gig USB stick. I cannot put 500 gig onto it, no matter what I try. I might try and zip it and compress it, but it has to come down to the size that you're installing it. The fact that they put 320 gig onto a 160 gig implant shows
When
that the people who
doubled,
did it didn't understand it. And it was things like that. That's what I'm saying. Some of the tropes were silly, whereas then you had the subverting the expectation, like when the bishop was getting up and you're thinking, whoa, and then it's just getting lifted up. But then you had the bit with the doubler and them putting extra. So you're saying I've got an 80 gig capacity, I've doubled it to 160 gig, which doesn't really double it, but we'll give them a bit of slip in that. And then they said, but we're going to put 320 gig onto that 160 gig. That's not how it works. So whoever wrote that part has got zero concept. It sounds like a good idea, but it does not work. That's like saying I'm going to put my Range Rover in that garage that you can just fit your Mini in. But don't worry, mine's is a car the same as yours. It's not how it works. And the
I
fact
know,
that
but someone worked in IT since the 80s.
if they're back, like me, they're still coming
If you
back.
try to do that and then try to deliver it cross country or across several countries, which is happening in this instance, with the degradation and everything that's happened, maybe you're recovering 10 to 15% of
Yeah.
all that was trying to be crammed in. So they would not really have that resolution. But this is where I'm happy to like suspend my okay,
Yeah.
let's drop reality a little bit.
See, the thing is, you can still enjoy the movie. Just because that wee bit like with the memory doesn't work because you're doubled it and then you're saying even if it's doubled I'm still going to put more than the space you've got. That's not how it works. But it doesn't stop the movie being an entertaining movie because whoever's written that has got zero concept. So let's just put down to the doubler, say it's only 175 gig because, or 176 gig. So they double it up. Right. So we'll see that instead of that. So they've just added the four. They've not worked that part out. So that's, we'll
But
give them that. And
I'll
then
pose
instead
a
of the
question here
220 gig going on to
we
the
have two
106,
people that we're sort of trying without giving everything away. Sadly, we're sort of talking all over where things happen, everything. But Sadako, you said you had not watched it, and the same came for you, Colin, in the chat. You had not seen it.
Yes, yeah.
Does this sound like an interesting film to just explore?
It sounds like it's of a genre I'm into. Like, it does. Yeah, it sounds. It's. I think I should probably give it a look.
well, for someone who had just seen it, thinking I had seen it and had no, because I'd heard about it and I'd heard bits about it, I thought I could give it another go because obviously it didn't leave a big impact on me because I remember bits about it, but I can't actually remember the story. But I'm sure I've seen it. And then once I watched it, I realised I hadn't seen it. And why the hell had I not seen it? Because it was, although there's bits that I can pick, I do that with a lot of my movies. I can pick wee bits. But because I pick wee bits doesn't mean I find it uninteresting. I actually found the story in general quite entertaining. And you kind of get better, to me, you kind of get better than that if it entertains you even the once. that's always good. That's what a movie's there for. Didn't educate you because they got things wrong, but it entertained. And truthfully, I would rather a movie entertains me than educates me.
Mhm.
That's the way I look at it.
I mean, I've read Neuromancer by the author William Gibson, and
Uh-huh.
he is. It sounds like he was quite a groundbreaking writer. It sounds like he
It sounds like
had a real vision, and that's kind of an interesting vision.
Yeah. But see, it's the same as like when I'd first read Heinlein, Starship Troopers. I actually really liked that. It was years and years ago. It was actually before I got it in Audible. I had the book from the library when I still went to the library and got books. So I never owned it. And then the movie came out, and I loved the movie because it reminded me a lot of why I liked the book. However, rereading the book after the movie, you notice the differences and what one's the better. I think certain things visually come across very well in the movie, whereas it's harder to visualize them when you're reading because the way it's worded, it is you can't have that visualization. So sometimes you need a visual aid to put the image in your head. Whereas there's sometimes in the book they do things that no matter how much they visualize it on the screen, the movie or the book does it better because it can spend the time to go into depth of certain things. So that's why I try and compare a lot of the medias because you are aware that certain things are better in certain areas. Oh, pardon me, I'm getting hiccups. And that's the thing. So I think I need to actually dig out these two short stories, the John and Mnemonic and what was the other one? Visual something or other. What was it?
But it's not only that. It is if you read the book, you have the
Virtual Light.
skinnies.
Virtual Light. Sorry, Virtual. I'll need to get the William Gibson's John and Mnemonic and Virtual Light, the short stories. I'll need to get hold of them somewhere and see how they were
But
because
if,
the movie was
if you go
interesting enough that I want to check it out.
PJ, if you go for the book by Heinlein or Starship Troopers,
I've got it. now.
yes, there is also the reference to the skinnies, but Paul Verhoeven is only covering the bugs, not the skinnies, which
I
is
know.
what they're having the major battle with.
Yes, I remember aspects of it. That's what I'm saying. It only covers parts of it, and I was aware of that at the time. But I enjoyed the visuals because it gave you a lot more. So if we're talking about only the bugs and the war with the bugs, I am aware that the movie there's certain parts of that I wasn't taking into account. It's like Sharp, right? I loved the books. The books are superior. And I thought the TV show was okay because they cut it down by 10% instead of having, or actually 100%, something like that. But anyway, instead of having 500 troops, which the Sharps book was about, the chosen men, the 500 that were left after the regiment was destroyed. Whereas in the TV show, they cut it down to 5 or 6. So the ratio was 1 to 100. So although the 5 or 6 main characters were from the book, it wasn't just those guys because 5 of them wouldn't have survived against the French army. The 500 of the survivors, fighters, sharpshooters could do it, and it worked better in the book. However, it didn't mean that I thought the TV show was a load of rubbish. I thought it was, considering it was cut down, and I understood why it was cut down because of budgets, that it was actually okay. So if you take it under that, so the numbers on the screen, if you just assume that's 100th of what they wanted, then even the 30 or 40 French troops that they're fighting is meant to be 3,000 of them. So it's the way I look at it, and so I didn't think one was really bad. One was nowhere near as good as the books. The TV show was nowhere near as good, but it didn't make it bad. And I thought the Starship Troopers and that, because they only covered part of it, I didn't think it was bad because of it. And I didn't think the book, because it had the other parts, I didn't think it was
I'm just
overly
thinking,
complex.
should we do a Starship Troopers stream at some point? Maybe
We should.
I've only seen
Starship Troopers is just superb.
I've only seen the first film. I've not read the book. So you two can probably fill me in on the book.
No,
Well,
I would recommend. I would recommend if we're
a while
doing a
ago.
stream, I would recommend get the book from Audible. Get the book as it is, because it's quite short. It's diary form rather than book. In the book version, it's basically their diary. Today this happened. Whereas the film is trying to build the universe around it together, but it's only focusing on the bugs.
Yeah.
By the way,
Basically, they're trying to actually do it from not, although Johnny Rico, it sort of features round about him. The book actually is how it'd be like, this morning I woke up, everything was going fine, and suddenly a meteor hit the earth and did it and killed so and so. Whereas in the movie, they're following Johnny Rico, but it's not as in his head, it's just they're following him. So it's a slightly different way of looking at the same thing.
And not to forget that Paul Verhoeven, even though I've read so many articles now, he didn't mean to make it sarcastic or like
He didn't. He
punching
wanted
or
He
anything.
wanted to actually show how be an anti-fascist. He wanted it to be an anti-fascist one, whereas people are saying, or he wanted to be anti-military, showing you how bad the military, if you go down a military route, it could be. Whereas people actually says no, it actually shows it in a better light because
Hey, I will do my part.
Uh-huh.
That's what I'm getting from it. I'll do my part.
by the way, just about the in the books, like, are the bugs actually plotting to destroy mankind, or is it actually just a case of these are freak accidents that are being pinned on the bugs and as an excuse to say
no,
that
the bugs have got a. I don't know if they class it as a brain bug, but it is an intelligent. It's a more of a.
The bugs
hive-mind
definitely
attack.
have a device on destroying humanity.
Yeah, it's basically like a hive mind
Right.
thing, mate, and it is definitely an attack.
Oh.
So it's not a case of they basically upstairs to make it. They're basically the aggressors. No, in the book they're the aggressors as well. It's more of a hive mind thing rather than a brain bug. They basically they're still a brain bug type thing, but it's more of a hive mind. That's why the troops and the bugs can fire the things and stuff like that. It's because it's more of a hive mind, although you've got levels.
So what is the beef with mankind in the books?
I can't remember because it has been a long time.
I don't think the beef, so to speak, is actually described. It's more like they are at war. They want to kill each other.
The war was started by Mormon extremists. It's basically they tell us it was a religious war.
All the moderate bugs speak out.
I can't remember. I'm going to actually have to.
I think Colin is a little bit on the point here, because didn't the Mormon religion like pop up at around the time when he was writing it? It is something Heinlein was really good at. It was describing so many different political beliefs and ideas and concepts and notions. That's why I like him. I mean, even though I think Stranger in a Strange World, which I'm not confusing this time, that's basically him describing Jesus at Nazareth 2,000 years ago, except in this one, sorry for a bit of a spoiler, but Jesus actually lives on the moon or something like that. But it's not one Jesus. There's a lot of Jesuses.
There you go. Mormonic colonists settled on the bug exclusion zone, very like Space Above and Beyond. And
yeah.
Colin, Disaster Area. Yes, they did 2 low-budget sequels, but they also did 2 animated sequels. So there was 5 movies all in.
And
with
there's
4
about
sequels.
3
There's also a
animated
TV.
series. Isn't it?
There was one called Roughnecks, a
Yeah.
TV show called Roughnecks.
But all of them are focusing on just the bugs. So you never
Yes.
get the skinnies.
Yeah, the Roughnecks. I thought there was only 8 episodes, but accordingly there's more. I'll need to double check how many more. So,
Well, just IMDb Casper Van Dien, because I believe he's the one that owns the intellectual property at the moment.
we just look up Roughnecks, Starship Trooper Chronicles.
And by the way,
This
for
is,
those that go in, oh, cool, there is an animated
Accordingly,
series. I
44
think the animated
episodes.
series was actually made in Spain and voiced by Spanish talking people, but it's been dubbed into American and horrible American kind of accents. It's really thick American accent when they talk.
Yeah. Well, accordingly, the Starship Troopers, the series, was 44 episodes, 1 season. And accordingly, the ones that I have, I thought there was only 8. None of the names of the episodes are the same as any of the episodes in this animated series. So I don't know where I'm getting it from. So I don't know if mine's is different. So it's really annoying me. Instead of actually see if it's any difference.
Actually, could we do a Pulver Haven stream and do just to do the and we could cover Starship Troopers as part of it.
We could, because these got so many good ones. I must admit.
Robocop, Total Recall. We could skip Basic Instinct and Showgirls probably.
Although Basic Instinct was his because based on Total Recall.
But
Because
there is a lot
Sharon
we could
Stone
cover
wouldn't do a reveal scene, basically become semi-naked. He hired her for Basic Instinct for that particular purpose, because he wanted her to do a scene or a sex scene or a nude scene, and she said no, it was not needed, and accordingly he got his own back by doing that and got her in it, and it was to get her back.
That is from the Star Trek shower scene. Starship Trooper shower scene, where he got them in the communal shower with boys and girls mixed. And
no, I'm talking about.
To be honest, I find it a bit weird. It's like, oh, hey, you're paid to be someone that is standing in front of the camera. I'm gonna sit behind the camera, and I'm also gonna be naked. Okay, if you want to go to those kind of beaches, you go to those kind of beaches.
Yeah.
But on the film set, it does sound a bit weird. It's like, I'm gonna capture you for eternity on camera. I'm also gonna be naked. I'm just gonna sit behind the camera.
Yeah. Right, guys, we'll need to actually finish up because I've got work in the morning and I need to get my beauty sleep. And believe me, I need a hell of a lot of beauty sleep.
Right, so we're catching you up in 2048.
Oh!
Sorry, you opened yourself up for that.
To be fair, you did.
I'm telling my mommy on you, that's not funny.
My dad could be the
Yeah, But believe it or not, I still like Ghostbusters, so I ain't afraid of no ghost.
Ooh, are you not?
Okay, maybe a little.
Right. Anyway, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sticking with us through the wee bit of Johnny Mnemonic we did and everything else included. But yes, our recommendation from me, I would definitely say watch Johnny Mnemonic. It is entertaining. It's not the greatest ever Keanu Reeves movie, but it is so entertaining. You will just. It doesn't try and preach. It just basically gives you a bit of entertainment. There is bits and pieces here and there you think, oh, but there is other bits you think, oh, and that's to me what a good entertaining movie is. The problem is, Colin, is we want a Heinlein stream, we want a Asian Core stream, we want night stream, we want everything. We will get them eventually. We will get them. Total Recall I've got, but I've not watched the TV show. I heard
did
about it.
not watch the
got
TV
it, but
show
I've not
at
watched
all.
it. See, I've got 8 episodes of Roughneck, and the 8 episodes I've got of Roughneck are called Pluto, Hydora, Topher, Tesca, Zephyr,
That's the first one where they're
Zendaya,
basically storming a
Tracker, and
space
Homefront.
station, isn't it?
Yeah, and Tracker and Homefront are the last 2. But that's only 8 episodes I've got, and there's nothing in Roughnecks, the TV show with 44 episodes, have got those names. So I don't know if mine's are from something different. I will need to actually rewatch them, but I watched them when I first got them, and it was a couple of years ago. So, see, would you two stop going on about how long it'll take me to get fucking beauty sleep?
Hey! I responded to a legitimate question.
Yes,
That's all I can say.
you're a very illegitimate number. But thank you very much for joining us all. Sadaka24, Jim the Viking, Windology, thank you for making it an interesting stream. Obviously, me being on my pod would actually just. But we are back on Saturday, just talking geeky. No particular subject. We will start somewhere and just end somewhere else. So
Essentially,
there's
like
no-
what we did tonight.
Yes, but tonight at least we had a starting subject, which we might have avoided mostly. But in our Saturday, we just go in, talk, we mention something, and we see where the chat takes us. Blade Runner 2049. No seen it. Well, I have. I've seen it once, and I wasn't impressed with it. It's almost
I
as
saw
bad
it, but
as
the
the Total
soundtrack did not
Recall
impress me.
remake. The Total Recall remake really annoyed me. So I don't know.
I
Anywho,
had Kate
I don't want to
Beckinsale.
get distracted because I need to get to my kit.
Yeah,
Seems
I
as
need to
though
get up in the
episodes
morning
are
as
so
well,
bad.
and I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning.
Yeah,
so this
you've
has
got
been a
a
long
thingy.
day.
So thank you, one and all. Remember to subscribe. I keep forgetting to ask people to do it. And there you go. One of our last comments is follow again. So obviously, definitely.
Hey, look, we got the spammer just as we quit.
Yeah, just as we quit.
Foreign agent, I call them.
Yeah.
Russian agent.
Yeah. Vlad the Impaler. It's a porno site, so yeah.
Well, I know actually, thanks to the spammer, I have a little bit more energy. I will round off because of the spammer. I will be watching The Hunt for Red October.
Red for Hunk October. Right. Anyway, so ladies and gents, remember, I'm not old. I'm fast. AJ may be out. And thank you, Jim, Sadaku, and I'll catch you all